243. I am Larry Elder, also known as the Great Eldersky, the sage from South Central, the Prince of Pico Union, the Czar of Common Sense, Don Lorenzo. Please check out the size of my business card. So much to get to between now and the close of the program. In a few minutes, we'll be speaking with Harmeet Dhillon. She is a Republican National Party official, also a lawyer, on what happened to reporters and former reporters for Project Veritas. FBI agents raided their homes and then later on raided the homes of Project Veritas founder James O'Keefe. Black Lives Matter activists threatened riots in New York if the newly elected mayor, who happens to be black, reinstates the anti-crime unit that was so effective in reducing crime. You know, about 95% of the homicide victims and homicide perps in New York happen to be black and brown. So the people disproportionately benefiting from this anti-crime gang unit were black and brown people. Moderna is testing a COVID-19 vaccine on infants below the age of 5. Says there's negligible risk from the virus, but they're still testing them on children that young anyway. Inflation reaching a 30-year high, but don't worry, it's transitory. Ron DeSantis is calling out Joe Biden for his hypocrisy over sending illegals to places like Florida. He says he's going to put them on a bus and send them to Delaware. Navy SEALs are suing the Biden administration over the COVID mandate, and it is confirmed by PJ Media that Gavin Newsom did indeed have an adverse reaction to a COVID booster and flu shot. All of that and more, 888-971-SAGE. But here first is James O'Keefe on the FBI in Southern District of New York raid on Project Veritas's journalists' homes.
By making this statement, I am putting myself at great risk because on November 4th, Project Veritas came under attack. I awoke to the news that apartments and homes of Project Veritas journalists, or former journalists, had been raided by FBI agents. It appears the Southern District of New York now has journalists in their sights for the supposed crime of doing their jobs lawfully and honestly, or at least this journalist. I had to think long and hard before making this statement. It's a decision that only I can make. They don't want me to defend myself and immediately try to silence me. That's why the cover letter to the grand jury subpoena we received contains this language. Quote, "The government hereby requests that you voluntarily refrain from disclosing the existence of the subpoena to any third party. While you are under no obligation to comply with our request, we are requesting you not to make any disclosure in order to preserve the confidentiality of the investigation and because the disclosure of the existence of this investigation might interfere with and impede the investigation," unquote. But while the Department of Justice requested us to not disclose the existence of the subpoena, something very unusual happened. Within an hour of one of our reporters' homes being secretly raided by the FBI, the New York Times, who we are currently suing for defamation, contacted the Project Veritas reporter to ask for comment. We do not know how the New York Times was aware of the execution of a search warrant at our reporter's home or the subject matter of the search warrant, as a grand jury investigation is secret. The FBI took materials of current former Project Veritas journalists, despite the fact that our legal team previously contacted the Department of Justice and voluntarily conveyed unassailable facts that demonstrate Project Veritas's lack of involvement in criminal activity and or criminal intent. Like any reporter, we regularly deal with the receipt of source information and take steps to verify its authenticity, legality, and newsworthiness. Our efforts were the stuff of responsible, ethical journalism, and we are in no doubt that Project Veritas acted properly at each and every step. However, it appears journalism itself may now be on trial. Late last year, we were approached by tipsters claiming they had a copy of Ashley Biden's diary. We had never met or heard of the tipsters. The tipsters indicated the diary had been abandoned in a room in which Ms. Biden stayed at the time, and in which the tipsters stayed in temporarily after Ms. Biden departed the room. The tipsters indicated that the diary included explosive allegations against then-candidate Joe Biden. The tipsters indicated that they were negotiating with a different media outlet for the payment of monies for the diary. The tipsters were represented by attorneys who handled the negotiations with Project Veritas. We investigated the claims provided to us, as journalists do. We took steps to corroborate the authenticity of the diary. At the end of the day, we made the ethical decision that because, in part, we could not determine if the diary was real, if the diary in fact belonged to Ashley Biden, or if the contents of the diary occurred, we could not publish the diary and any part thereof. We attempted to return the diary to an attorney representing Ms. Biden, but that attorney refused to authenticate it. Project Veritas gave the diary to law enforcement to ensure it could be returned to its rightful owner. We never published it. Now, Ms. Biden's father's Department of Justice, specifically the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, appears to be investigating the situation, claiming the diary was stolen. We don't know if it was, but it begs the question: in what world is the alleged theft of a diary investigated by the president's FBI and his Department of Justice? A diary. This federal investigation smacks of politics. Project Veritas never threatened or engaged in any illegal conduct. Should the Southern District of New York try to take away our First Amendment rights and uncover and publish newsworthy stories without government intimidation, be assured Project Veritas will not back down. Nothing stops at Project Veritas. Let me be clear. Our mission is to serve the public's right to know by illuminating, revealing, exposing information others wish to hide for the wrong reasons. To quote Lord Acton, we believe everything kept in secret degenerates. We don't mislead or conceal. We investigate facts and potential newsworthy information. Sometimes, as was the case here, after we investigate, we decide not to publish a news story. But Project Veritas will run from nothing, and we will hide from nothing. We exist for the very purpose of discovering and revealing the truth and hope to make the world a more transparent place. Now, this is not the first time we have been attacked, and it will not be the last. We know why. We've investigated powerful people, and in many ways, we are the very tip of the spear. But we never break the law. In fact, one of our ethical rules is to act as if there are 12 jurors on our shoulders all the time. And that truth, and the truth, will vindicate us. When the FBI in the Southern District of New York seize reporters' notebooks, it is not just an attack on Project Veritas. It is an attack on every American and our sacred right to free speech and a free press. The First Amendment is first for a reason. It guarantees all the other rights that follow, because it's all about accountability. Without accountability, freedom itself is an illusion. So the great question is this an indicator in the direction that America is going?
And when we come back, we'll be speaking with Project Veritas' lawyer, Harmeet Dhillon. Here's what Tucker Carlson said about this case.
Here's yet another amazing story for you tonight. So right before the last election, the president's daughter, Ashley Biden, somehow was separated from her diary. She says it was stolen. So on the pretext of that, a year later, FBI agents just raided the homes of several working journalists, including a current employee at Project Veritas. They broke down doors in pre-dawn raids. They were trying to seize material that might embarrass the Biden family. Their boss was upset, and so they did this for him. Pretty amazing, really. So we're going to begin with the statement from the head of Project Veritas, James O'Keefe. Here's his summary of what happened.
We already played that for you, his summary of what happened. We'll be speaking with Harmeet Dhillon in just a few minutes. She is Project Veritas' lawyer. By the way, regarding the threat by Black Lives Matter to invoke riots and violence, bloodshed in the streets in the event that the newly elected mayor of New York reinstate the anti-gang unit, we're going to be speaking with the former mayoral Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa about all of this later on in the program, so stick around for that. Also, Job Creators Network has filed a lawsuit against the mandates that apply to the private sector, that if you have a business with over 100 employees, you shall mandate that your employees be vaccinated. All of that and more. 888-971-SAGE on this Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day to all of you who are making our country safe. I am Larry Elder. Do not leave town.
Family can pick you up every time you fall.
Every time I take one step forward.
When Wright came in this morning, he wants to fight you.
No one expected this out of him.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
So anyway, you start with that notion of 15,000 people under that bridge in Del Rio. 15,000, okay? These are the numbers released by DHS. Number returned to Haiti, 1,401. Number in Customs and Border Patrol custody, 3,206. Number remaining at the bridge in Del Rio, according to DHS, 3,881. So, I'm sorry, those three numbers that I just gave you are about 8,500. Where's the other 8,000? Where are they? And the answer might be St. Louis. That might be in the suburbs of Dallas and Fort Worth, right outside my door, because this is the plan. Do not let yourself be caught walking around saying, this Biden-Harris administration, they're just inept. They don't have a plan. Oh, yes, they do. Huge waves of a needy underclass pouring across our border so that you instantly need far more social services, far more government spending, because that is the crack pipe of the left. And then ultimately, all of these people are going to vanish into the tapestry of America, where they will eventually be normalized and ultimately, of course, energized for decades of grateful Democrat voting.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
It's like a ripple throughout society. We've got Dr. Fauci hectoring everybody who's had COVID who didn't get a vaccination, even though they have immunity. But I'm talking about not the people who refuse to be vaccinated, but the people who've had it and yet we have 2 million people scheduled to come across the border in the fiscal year, and he's absolutely silent about it.
That's right.
He can't even utter the word.
Well, it's like the silence of the unmasked demonstrators. The medical profession said that's fine because it's
all 1,200 of them. I remember that well.
That's right.
And it's so what we're doing is we're creating not just exemptions for illegal aliens, but we're elevating them in some sense. We're not asking them to follow the law. We're not asking them to
So I want to know the
vaccinated.
original sin here. Is the original sin Ted Kennedy? Is the original sin the inability of the World War II generation to pass on American values? What's the original sin?
I think it's two things. It was the affluence and the leisure created by the 6%, just enormous affluence that was created, 6% a year GDP in the 50s and 60s, and we created the most leisured and affluent society, and it created certain expectations about human nature that create a guy like Ted Kennedy and create his idea that we're so wealthy.
Larry, Jesse from San Bernardino. Larry, in October of 2019, when the Governor Newsom first got a whiff of him being recalled, he went out and said that he was going to get to the bottom of how and why gas prices are so high in California. Larry, it's been 25 months. I'm still waiting for the reasons why the fuel prices are so high, gasoline prices are so high in California. Larry, let's go back and try this again, Larry. I want you measuring the mansion of the governorship in California for new curtains, Larry. Go, Larry, go. Run again.
Come on. Gavin Newsom had to take time out to trick-or-treat with his family. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. My next guest was born in India. Family moved here when she was a child so her dad could pursue a career as an orthopedic surgeon. Family eventually settled in North Carolina. She finished high school at the age of 16 and then attended college at Dartmouth, then went to law school at UVA, University of Virginia. She's also former vice chairman of the California Republican Party and is now national committee woman of the Republican National Committee for California. Owns a law practice called the Dhillon Law Group. Please welcome back to the program, Harmeet Dhillon. Harmeet, how are you?
Happy to be here.
Harmeet, have we decided that Gavin Newsom was taking time out to be with his family, or did Gavin Newsom have an adverse reaction to the booster and flu shots he took?
Well, last time I checked, it was Halloween, not Halloweek. So I don't think his explanation is holding. No, and certainly not Hallow 2 weeks. So I think that he probably spent some time with his kids, which is normal and natural. But then the rest of that time he was MIA, and it probably spells either some disagreements in the family or some medical issue, and there's no other really good explanation for it. So I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but I think it's very weird that he puts the whole state of California into an indefinite emergency and then chillaxes like there's nothing, different going on here in the state.
Well, Harmeet, before we get into Project Veritas and what's happening to them and to James O'Keefe, I want to thank you for all of your support and your guidance and counsel when I was running for governor in this recall and replacement race. I'd never run for office before, obviously, and you offered a lot of sage advice, and I appreciate it.
My pleasure, and we were cheering for you. My husband and I voted for you, and your day will come in the future, I'm sure.
Well, I hope so. So what's going on? Tell me what's the deal with this diary, and how in the world does the FBI raid reporters and former reporters with Project Veritas, and then they ultimately raided James O'Keefe's home himself?
This is very important because I don't think the raid that people, hopefully your listeners know about, I don't think it was about the diary. So maybe the diary is the excuse for it, but it's very strange for law enforcement to go chasing after a person's diary a year after it allegedly went missing, and then the journalist whose office was raided didn't publish the diary. That's another very important fact here. They couldn't verify it. They didn't publish it. I would argue that the FBI's, hysterical overreaction to this a year later verifies the diary. So that's one, knock on this whole situation. But more importantly, as we all know, Project Veritas has made a career of telling the truth about the powerful. Mm-hmm. And so they've made a lot of enemies. And those enemies include, but not limited to, parties who I've sued for them, CNN and Twitter. It includes the New York Times, which they're in litigation with. It includes Democracy Partners, which is a, shady outfit of Democratic operatives, which is suing them in a case that's going to trial next month. And it on and on and on. And, of course, the Biden administration and Big Pharma and so many others. And so it's got a lot of enemies, and those enemies have powerful friends in the Southern District of New York. By raiding a journalist's home and taking his materials, the DOJ is acting in violation of statutory constraints on the rights of journalists to be free from this type of harassment from the government. It violates the First Amendment. It violates the privacy rights of the donors whose information is on that phone, those phones that were seized. It violates DOJ protocols about invading the privacy of journalists, which is supposed to be authorized by the main justice itself. And it just is a disgraceful exercise in government raw power and excess and violating a journalist's rights. I mean, they took James, whose lawyer, by the way, had offered to give them whatever they wanted to have a conversation politely in advance. They took him out of his home at 6 a.m. in his underwear. They threw him in the hallway in handcuffs so that all of his neighbors could see him, and they proceeded to rummage through his effects for hours. And some journalists are cheering this. They say, oh, Project Veritas isn't a journalist. Project Veritas has broken more stories than any other, journalist that's criticizing him. I can tell you that, James O'Keefe. And if this is allowed to stand against Project Veritas, you may find this happening to a journalist who you like. So This is of existential importance to truth in our country.
Harmeet, did they find anything? Did they take anything?
They took his phones. which had on them information like, I'm one of his lawyers, so there's got to be information that I've communicated to him on those phones. About 24 other lawyers' communications with him are on those phones. Communications with many donors are on those phones. And most importantly, communications with numerous sources inside big corporations and inside the government are on those phones.
Mm-hmm. So, Harmeet, do you think this was retaliation against Project Veritas for their expose? And if so, please explain to me how it is that 60 Minutes prides itself on sending undercover people there all the time. That's what Project Veritas does. I don't know that any journalist over at 60 Minutes has had his or her home broken into.
Let me give you a counterexample. Earlier today, the New York Times published some legal memos that they somehow illegally obtained or that were illegally obtained from Project Veritas. In other words, privileged legal communications to Project Veritas about its journalism. The New York Times published that today. And then they took it down. I don't know why they took it down. That's a little weird. But it is protected under the United States Constitution and Supreme Court precedent for a journalist who lawfully comes into possession of information, even if that information happens to have been stolen from somebody. It's lawful for a journalist to publish that so long as the journalist didn't play a role in the theft. Mm-hmm. And so you're correct. From the Pentagon Papers to Upton Sinclair's The Jungle to exposés by, I think it was ABC News on Food Lion, food, tainted food, and like on and on. This is a hallowed practice of good journalists to go undercover, to publish important information. Journalism is, I think, as one of the Project Veritas people has said, journalism is what people don't want, is what somebody doesn't want to see the light of day. Right. Everything else is just public relations.
Harmeet, we only have about 45 seconds left. What do you want from the lawsuit? What are you expecting?
Well, there's no lawsuit yet. It's a search warrant by the DOJ, but there may be, there are going to be a lot more legal steps to come. The federal court has ordered a freeze on the DOJ looking at those phones until there's a hearing, so we want a victory in court today. Mm-hmm. And we are going to be zealously fighting to protect the First Amendment in this case. You
don't expect to file a lawsuit?
I can't say. I can tell you that right now we're dealing with the excesses of the DOJ. If there is a lawsuit, you'll be among the first to know. Harmeet
Dhillon, Dhillon Law Group, DhillonLaw.com is your website. Harmeet, as always, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Larry.
You got it. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. We're going to be talking to Curtis Sliwa later on in the program about the Black Lives Matter threat of violence. I'm Larry Elder.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
To hear the White House press secretary blame Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott and other Republican governors for playing politics by trying to preserve jobs, not let people get fired over the vaccine mandate. What's the political gain for a governor to stand up to a tyrannical machine and say, you're not going to fire people because they don't want to put a medicine in their arm? You can't try to draw that line in the sand and say, well, the government shouldn't do it, but businesses can. We're either going to fire people over a personal medical decision or we're not. You're splitting hairs when you say, well, now the government, Gary Kelly flat out said, we don't want to do this at Southwest Airlines. He knows that this is a work stoppage. What's happened in Southwest? It isn't weather. They're not having any computer glitches. They got people working who aren't going to show up, and they're going to try to send Southwest a message. And Gary Kelly, the CEO of Southwest, admitted it by saying, we don't want this. Biden's making us do it. The government's making us do it. These zealots in charge, the kind of tyrannical governors we saw putting lines in the Home Depot, and you can go to the garden section, but you can't go to the towel section, and all this crap. Put a mask on to walk to your table and take the mask off when you sit at the table. Like you can't spread COVID at the table, but you can when you're walking to the men's room. Are you kidding me? Would you stop it? And worst of all, forcing people to take a vaccine or get fired.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
The image of Superman in a homosexual kiss. Because DC Comics, I guess they don't want to sell comics. And now the new Superman, the son of Kal-El, is going to come out as gay, or as Jeff pointed out, I guess he's bi, right? Whatever, who cares? But here's the bottom line. This is beautiful. I hope Media Matters is writing this one up. Hey, Zachy Poo, are you typing? How many homosexuals, how many gay people are there in society? 1%, 1.5%. Let's be generous. Let's double it. 3%! 3% of America are gay. And the gay people I know, they don't rub it in your face. It's just a thing they do. It's private. It's not an agenda they gotta ram in your face. Say, look, this is me. It's the radical fraction of that 2%. The loud screamers. The identity politics harridans. So why are you trying to placate a fraction of 2%? It's dumb business sense, really. Means you're weak. It's not courageous to have a gay Superman. It's the opposite. You're a panderer. R.I.P. Commander Bond.
Hi, Larry. I wanted to tell you about a bad reaction to the COVID shot. My friend Jim, who is a scientist, he died October 14th. Right at the end of September, he had the COVID shot. He already had an autoimmune disease, but his doctor thought that he should take the COVID shot because it's safe. Well, within a couple of days, he was falling. Then he couldn't walk. Then he became incontinent. Then he couldn't swallow, and he couldn't talk. And October 14th, he died. So I'm quite sure that that COVID shot accelerated the nerve degeneration.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Well, a reaction to the shot and to the flu shot might very well be why Gavin Newsom was AWOL for 12 days. We'll talk about that in just a second. We are ready to launch something big. I want you to be part of it. If you enjoy listening to my show and love watching it also on SalemNewsChannel.com, by the way, you can watch the show live on youtube.com/Larry Elder Show Radio right now, or the app with the same name, loaded on the Apple or Android store, or watch us on Roku. Just type Salem News Channel into the search bar and come check us out. We are the antidote to the mainstream media. Soon we will begin adding new TV-only hours. This is only going to get bigger and better. Thank you for all you're doing to make this thing successful. We are on a mission, and you, of course, are a huge part of it. The zip poll question I gave you yesterday was as follows. For your job, are you required to be vaccinated for COVID-19? 27% of you said yes. 73% of you said no. The question for today, have you watched a movie in a theater in the last 5 years? Yes or no. Have you watched a movie in the theater in the last 2 years? So a two-parter. In order to participate, you must be a member of the Zip community. Go to your app store, download the Zip poll by searching under Zip Poll USA. And in order to respond to this two-parter, you must use my code SAGE, S-A-G-E. Now, remember Gavin Newsom, AWOL for 12 days, did not go to the big confab in Scotland on climate change, even though all the big guys were there. Barack Obama was there. Barack Obama criticized China and Russia for not being there. John Kerry, of course, was there. And this California is a state that's the leading edge in fighting so-called climate change. And Gavin Newsom said he was going to attend that conference, of course. And then suddenly he canceled it, said but he would attend the conference virtually. Then canceled that. Didn't show up anywhere for about 12 days. And then over the weekend attended a wedding for a member of the Getty family, granddaughter of J. Paul Getty, in San Francisco. Photos from the wedding show Newsom wearing a mask during the ceremony. By the way, Nancy Pelosi was there, not wearing a mask, but whatever. And his campaign put out a statement that, he was just dealing with family issues. His children did an intervention, that he had been stressed out. He'd been working so hard, and of course he had the recall he had to deal with, and so he's needed to take time out to be with his family. His family said, "Daddy, you're going to not be here for Halloween?" That's what the campaign says. But that's not what Project Veritas says. Project Veritas says they've confirmed, PJ Media has confirmed, headline, Gavin Newsom had adverse reaction to COVID and booster flu shots. Quote, sources have revealed why California Governor Gavin Newsom went missing from the public for nearly 2 weeks after receiving his COVID booster shot. By the way, he took the booster shot on television and apparently recently had a flu shot. And according to the Daily Mail, Newsom was left with muscle weakness and fatigue after receiving the booster shot and the flu shot within days of each other. But according to a press secretary, Newsom, quote, had no adverse reaction to the booster shot, close quote, and said the news reports that say otherwise, there's something wrong. Really? How many of you believe that? Had no adverse whatsoever to the booster shot. Right. And he was just spending Halloween with his family because his kids did an intervention and said, you need to be home more often. Right. And his wife said he just needed to be home with his family. You've got a family. Of course, you're not governor of California. You're not the guy that considers himself to be the leading guy on combating climate change. You're not the guy who said he was going to attend the conference. You're not the guy who canceled it. You're not the guy who said he would attend the conference virtually and then canceled that. But he had other things to do. And these reports that he had an adverse reaction to the flu shot are simply false. Right. Muscle weakness and fatigue after receiving the COVID booster and flu shot within days of each other. In other words, the Daily Mail apparently is guilty of, wait for it, fake news. We're going to keep following this story. Again, if it is true that he had an adverse reaction to the booster shot, particularly after having the flu shot, maybe the rule is you don't have the booster shot within days of having a flu shot. I don't know. Either way, don't you think we, the public, have a right to know whether or not he had an adverse reaction to the booster shot? 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Next hour, we'll talk to mayoral candidate Republican Curtis Sliwa, founder of the Guardian Angels, about the threat made by Black Lives Matter to engage in violence. Blood is going to flow if the newly elected mayor reinstitutes the anti-gang unit. Now, 3-week quick start, $19.95. Less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, we're talking about less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. The doctors who formulated Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, each of which are drug-free to deal with pain from a different metabolic pathway. Back, shoulder, neck, hip, foot, knee pain from exercise, or just getting older. Go to relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com, or call 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384.
On the Charlie Kirk Show.
When there is a clash on the left between separate preferred activist groups, who gets preference? Who wins? Now, on the left, they have a hierarchy, not any different than a hierarchy that you would have in any sort of organization. You see, when the left has a moment of disagreement or conflict, it is very important to realize that there is a structure of what matters more than something else. I wrote a piece for humanevents.com where I wrote, it was literally called, "This Matters More Than That." Now, a great example of this is when Fauci, the lockdown artist, the anti-freedom activist, mad scientist, who is the best example of the technological and scientific elite that the left worships. When he was even confronted by a talk show host, where they asked Fauci, they said, so do you think that young people should stop hooking up via Tinder and basically having very promiscuous relationships? And Fauci said, well, you have to understand there's some risk to that. He didn't denounce it because he understood that if he came out against promiscuous behavior for young people, there'd be a revolution.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
But the issue that is animating conservatives, animating moderates in a way that is unexpected, that is moving people in massive numbers in the state of Virginia and nationally, is education. It's the number one issue. 77% of conservatives say that curriculum and education is a major issue. 51% of liberals say that it's a major issue. You go through the polling in Virginia. How much of a factor is each of these choices for your choice of governor? Abortion policy is 58% major factor, but curriculum on race and history, 62%. Now, the number one issue is Virginia's economy still, but getting up there is crime and safety in Virginia. These are
Hey, Larry, Frank, and Diane from Woodland Hills. Thanks for everything. Thanks for throwing your hat in the ring. Yeah, we're both supporters of the way you roll. So we appreciate everything. And my wife wants to tell you that we voted for you. I thought that was a given. But anyway, thank you. Take care.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Next hour, we'll be speaking with Curtis Sliwa, Republican candidate for mayor of New York. He did not win, but waged a valiant campaign and graciously threw his support to the newly elected mayor, who said he may revive the anti-gang unit, to which Black Lives Matter Local says if he does so, blood will flow in the streets. All of that and more, 888-971-SAGE. And also, Job Creators Network, Alfredo Ortiz is going to be joining us next hour. They're filing a lawsuit against the Biden administration over the mandates for private employers who have more than 100 employees to mandate that their employees be vaccinated. Now, I've been talking to you for a long time about the great work Job Creators Network does in fighting small business for small business owners. They're now taking the fight to courts. As I just now mentioned, the Biden COVID-19 mandate is an assault on small business owners, while large global companies don't seem to have a problem with the mandate. After all, what's the loss of 100 workers when you have 100,000? Losing workers in a small business is an absolute disaster. It can be the difference between thriving and surviving. That's why Job Creators Network filed a motion with the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals asking that court to apply the recent 5th Circuit Court's temporary stay of the mandate to the entire country. Small business owners cannot afford this expensive legal work, and that's why Job Creators Network is doing it for them. If you own a small business or a friend to a small business or even support small businesses in your own neighborhood area, I'm urging you to go to blockthemandate.com. That's blockthemandate.com. You can join with Job Creators Network to help small business owners fight this illegal mandate. Go to blockthemandate.com. Your help and support matters. Give a little, give a lot. Go to blockthemandate.com right now. That's blockthemandate.com. Patrick is in California. Patrick, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Hey, Larry. There was a report on a morning show that he had been at a wedding for one of the Getty billionaire heirs, Ivy Getty, and he was there for the week wedding. Also, his aunt, the Speaker of the House, officiated the wedding. So that's where reports was that he was attending that for a week.
A 12-day wedding?
1 week wedding, yeah.
Yeah. You know, and Patrick, I mentioned that he was at that wedding. He was photographed wearing a face mask, but Nancy Pelosi, who also attended the wedding, you just now said she officiated it over it, she was not wearing a face mask, even though California has mandates for crowds over 100. I understand there was more than 100 people at this wedding to wear masks indoors. Nancy Pelosi, as was the case when she was having her hair done, was not wearing a mask. By the way, Gavin Newsom has now extended the state of emergency in California for the third time. This makes more than 2 years under the pandemic order. The executive order, this one that was executed today, stretches the declaration through March 31st, 2022. So it will have been in effect more than 2 years. He first declared the state of emergency in California on March 2, 2020, hours after California saw its first death from what was then referred to as the coronavirus. Newsom cited heightened anxiety and the 53 new cases in the state. Now the number of cases here in California rising faster than the number of cases in Florida. It was one of the issues during my campaign. I argued that the state never should have been shut down like that. That schools should have been able to figure it out on their own. Businesses should have been able to figure it out on their own. And I talked about all the unintended consequences of the state being shut down in a more draconian way than was the case in any of the other 49 states. Higher depression, higher suicide, higher opioid addiction, higher domestic violence, and we assume higher child abuse. The reason I say we assume that is because the principal way of reporting child abuse are teachers and bureaucrats at schools, because kids go to school, in school, and that's where it is observed. So assuming all those other things increase, it seems to me to be pretty logical that child abuse also increase, except we will never, ever know about it. Also, because of the way this state was shut down, we've only recovered about 50% of the jobs pre-pandemic as opposed to 2/3 national average. And as I mentioned, 1/3 of all small businesses are now closed forever here in California, most of them owned by, quote, people of color, the kind of people that people like Gavin Newsom claims that they care about. This is a California teacher, and he is upset that apparently some student did not have his mask on. This appears to be either a high school teacher or a college teacher.
Please make sure your masks are on the entire time you're sitting in here. Come on, guys. It's been a year and a half at this point. If you do not know that your mask is over your nose at this moment, pull it up. Pull up your mask!
I guess he wants you to pull up your mask. Honestly. Again, young people, healthy people are not likely to get sick, not likely to get severely sick, not likely to be hospitalized, certainly not likely to die. But there is a mandate here in California, public and private schools, face mask mandates, vaccine mandates, and later on next year, mandates for kids aged between 5 and 11 after the FDA approves it for children aged 5 to 11, which they've done. So it'll probably go into effect sometime in July. And after he survived the recall, he has been unchained. Signed a bill so that you won't impose crime enhancement, so bad guys won't serve for the full term. Why? Well, because a disproportionately high number of the bad guys are black and brown, and therefore systemic racism. Signed a bill mandating ethnic studies in high school. Signed a bill mandating gender-neutral toy sections at large toy stores. Another mandate outlawing the sale of gasoline-powered leaf blowers, and lawnmowers, despite the fact that tens of thousands of people are now going to be incurring far more expenses in buying these so-called clean tools. Now, the doctors who formulated Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, each of which are 100% drug-free, to deal with pain from a different metabolic pathway. Each of the 4 ingredients deals with inflammation from 4 different angles. That may very well be why over 70% of the people who order the 3-week quick start go on to order more. If you've got back, shoulder, neck, hip, foot, knee pain from exercise, or just getting older, consider ordering the 3-week quick start. Still discounted to only $19.95. That is less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, well, less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. Just go to relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com, or call 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384, 888-971-SAGN, 888-971-SAGE. Join in. I'm Larry Elder.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
That we have this unbelievable upset victory for Glenn Youngkin and the Attorney General and the Lieutenant Governor. Why did the good guys win, Patty?
Because we did use common sense and facts. Here in Loudoun County, the parents were being targeted and blacklisted by elected officials on the school board, using constituents to blacklist other constituents. We found out, we made a big stink about it. We said this is un-American. And the more we uncovered through FOIAs, through gathering information, we come to find out that this school board wanted to silence us. They didn't want parents to get involved with their children's education.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Allie, hope you're doing fantastic. Larry, I have a lot of conversation out here, specifically in Arizona in this area, because we get so many people fleeing California coming here, and I've got to just keep it red, you know. But one of the things they keep saying is, why can't they see this? Or they refuse to see this, meaning the liberals, the elephant in the room, that vaccinating children is a bad thing, that inflation's a bad thing, abortion, they can't see it. Why can't they see it? I don't understand. And these are people, they're searching for the answer, Larry. They know there's something wrong, but they can't figure it out. And what I explain to them, I take them to the Bible. And Larry, I know you, and I know the church you go to, and I know your pastor unbelievably well because I used to go there when I was in California. And the answer is in Romans 1:18 through 32, and it's also in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. And those verses explain exactly what's going on. And the funny thing, it's been there for 2,000 years. Have a great day.
Please make sure your masks are on the entire time you're sitting in here. Come on, guys. It's been a year and a half at this point. If you do not know that your mask is over your nose at this moment, pull it up. Pull up your mask!
That audio is from a tweet put up by the Californians for School Choice. I don't know what teacher that is or where that took place. I'll try and find out. 888-971 SAGE. Tonight I'm going to be on the Laura Ingraham Show around 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific Time. I'll be at the top of the show, so you might want to join us. Also, next hour, I'll be talking with Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate for mayor of New York. We're going to talk about Hawk Newsom. He is the head of Black Lives Matter New York, who says if the newly elected mayor-elect of New York, Eric Adams, reimposes the anti-gang unit, blood is going to flow in the streets. Also, we're going to be speaking with Alfredo Ortiz of Job Creators Network about the lawsuit he's filed against the Biden administration over the mask mandates for the private sector. And in the third hour, we're going to replay the ceremony that was conducted for my dad posthumously. It was arranged by the former Congressman Dana Rohrabacher here in California about my father and Montford Point Marines, the first black Marines receiving a congressional gold medal. All of that and more, 888-971 SAGE. Alan is in Oakland, California. Alan, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Larry. Everybody around here knows that Newsom's been running for president since he's a teenager and that Getty Money has been financing him the whole time. In 2024, Biden will be toast. Nobody will want to nominate Harris. So the question is, what is in Newsom's way?
That's a good question. It really is. I talked about that today with the co-chair of my campaign. I'll respond to that later on, Alan. Alan, thank you for calling. I appreciate it. I'm Larry Elder. What is in Newsom's way? You're right.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
To hear the White House press secretary blame Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott and other Republican governors for playing politics by trying to preserve jobs, not let people get fired over the vaccine mandate. What's the political gain for a governor to stand up to a tyrannical machine and say, you're not going to fire people because they don't want to put a medicine in their arm? You can't try to draw that line in the sand and say, well, the government shouldn't do it, but businesses can. We're either going to fire people over a personal medical decision or we're not. You're splitting hairs when you say, well, now the government, Gary Kelly flat out said, we don't want to do this at Southwest Airlines. He knows that this is a work stoppage. What's happened at Southwest, it isn't weather. They're not having any computer glitches. They got people working who aren't going to show up, and they're going to try to send Southwest a message. And Gary Kelly, the CEO of Southwest, admitted it by saying, we don't want this. Biden's making us do it. The government's making us do it. These zealots in charge, the kind of tyrannical governors we saw putting lines in the Home Depot, and you can go to the garden section, but you can't go to the towel section, and all this crap. Put a mask on to walk to your table and take the mask off when you sit at the table. Like you can't spread COVID at the table, but you can when you're walking to the men's room. Are you kidding me? Would you stop it? And worst of all, forcing people to take a vaccine or get fired.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
The image of Superman in a homosexual kiss. Because DC Comics, I guess they don't want to sell comics. And now the new Superman, the son of Kal-El, is going to come out as gay, or as Jeff pointed out, I guess he's bi, right? Whatever, who cares? But here's the bottom line. This is beautiful. I hope Media Matters is writing this one up. Hey, Zachy Poo, are you typing? How many homosexuals, how many gay people are there in society? 1%, 1.5%. Let's be generous. Let's double it. 3%! 3% of America are gay. And The gay people I know, they don't rub it in your face. It's just a thing they do. It's private. It's not an agenda they got to ram in your face. Say, look, this is me. It's the radical fraction of that 2%. The loud screamers. The identity politics harridans. So why are you trying to placate a fraction of 2%? It's dumb business sense, really. Means you're weak. It's not courageous to have a gay Superman. It's the opposite. You're a panderer. R.I.P. Commander Bond. R.I.P. Kal-El. Rest in peace, Superman.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Sanjay Gupta is used to the CNN way of doing things, which is, kind of kid gloves. And Joe Rogan said, no. You're in the lion's den now. You see, this is a place where people have testosterone, wisdom, and patriotism. You work for CNN where none of those things exist.
You're probably the only one at CNN that's glad.
No. We're not.
The rest of them are all lying about me taking horse medication. And we should talk about that.
That bothered you.
It should bother you, too. They're lying at your network about people taking human drugs versus drugs for veterinary.
Calling it a horse dewormer is not a flattering thing. I get that.
It's a lie. It's a lie on a news network, and it's a lie that's a willing... That's a lie that they're conscious of. This is not a mistake.
Yeah.
They're unfavorably framing it as veterinary medicine.
I love it. Rarely do you see justice happen in real time. Rarely. I'm a big fan of the book of Job. And one of the things I like about the book of Job is that it's real. It's authentic. It's kind of why do bad things happen to good people? That's what the book of Job is about. In the second book of Plato's Republic, it talks about justice, and actually the narrative frames that good things happen to people that do good and bad things happen to things that do bad, and rarely do you actually ever get to see justice play out in real time. That's justice. Sanjay Gupta having to sit down for 2 hours of Joe Rogan being like, it should bother you. It's a conscious lie where you're saying that I should take a horse dewormer. And Sanjay Gupta said, man, that really bothered you. Yeah, it was the #1 news story on the planet that Joe Rogan is going around to Preakness or the Kentucky Derby with his hands open asking for medication.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Americans still have enough fighting spirit. We're not Canada, we're not Sweden, we're not Germany. And
I would say that even under lawful elections where it was close but you lost, the incoming administration would say, we don't really have a mandate. Normally people would say, I've got to deal with this closely divided group. I can't do great, big, dramatic things. This group has come in and said, we are going to go as hard to the left, as hard to progressivism, as hard to socialism, as hard to communism as we can, as fast as we can. We are going to go as hard to the godless view of everything as fast as we can. We are going to empower our enemies and insult our friends. We are going to undo everything the previous administration did, not because it's necessarily good for the country, but simply for the fact that the previous administration did it. And where that really came back to
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder, the great Eldersky. Later on tonight, I'm going to be on the Laura Ingraham Show on Fox News at around 7 p.m. Pacific time. Check that out. Next segment, we'll be talking with Curtis Sliwa, the founder of Guardian Angels and a Republican candidate for mayor of New York. We're going to talk about an assertion made by Black Lives Matter leader Hawk Newsom that says there'll be blood in the streets if newly elected Mayor Eric Adams reimposes the anti-gang unit. By the way, New York is roughly 50% black and Hispanic. Something like 95% of the homicide victims and perps are black and Hispanic. So in fighting crime, you are disproportionately helping black and Hispanic victims. We're going to talk to Leo Hanian tomorrow, about the assertion made by a former member of the Obama administration that the reason for the inflation is not because of bad policy. It's not because of the spending on the so-called infrastructure plan and the proposed spending for the Build Back Better plan. No. It has to do with, it's around the country. It's around the world. Germany has inflation. England has inflation. So you just can't say it's because of us. We're going to talk to Leo Hanian tomorrow about that, so stick around for that. That'll be Phone a Bro Friday. And the zip poll question I left you with yesterday. For your job, are you required to be vaccinated for COVID-19? 27% of you said yes. 73% of you said no. But that's over a quarter of people who, for his or her job, must be vaccinated for COVID-19. The one for tonight, double. Have you watched a movie in a theater in the last 5 years? Yes or no? Have you watched a movie in a theater in the last 2 years? Yes or no? In order to participate in this poll, I want you to go to your app store, download the Zip Poll app. And in order to participate in this two-parter, you must use my code SAGE, S-A-G-E, and I will give you the results tomorrow. Now, remember back in July of this year when Joe Biden dismissed concerns over rising prices, saying that long-term inflation is highly, highly unlikely. And of course, Biden has a degree in economics. I'm just suggesting.
The vast majority of the experts, including Wall Street, are suggesting that it's highly unlikely that it's going to be long-term inflation that's going to get out of hand.
The vast majority of economists. CNBC's Rick Santelli yesterday.
On CPI, holy cow, hot. Even the headline is hot, up 0.9%, And of course, that really is much bigger than the 0.6 expect. It's the 6th month in a row of 5% or higher. That began in in June with a 5.0. So these are, you could call it temporary, but it certainly doesn't appear that way in the real world.
And Joe Biden said that, inflation is not rising nearly as fast as wages are. Au contraire, says CNBC's Leesman.
I think Powell's a little bit late to the game in terms of dialing back some of the stimulus. What happened is the Fed was wide open in terms of the pandemic and getting stimulus into the economy. Then the fiscal side came through with the Biden administration putting trillions out there, along with the Trump administration, putting trillions out into the economy. The Fed didn't change its policy. The Fed is being very careful not to reverse policy because it wants to get employment back up. The trouble is the trade-off here that we have, Stephanie, that we could talk about all day long. Everybody's experiencing inflation, and we're trying to get some, I don't know what number you want to use, 3 to 5 million people back to work. Meanwhile, the rest of employees basically see their wages go down in inflation terms. So it's an interesting social trade-off right now. What the Fed could do would be to accelerate its removal of stimulus from the economy.
The inflation is even shocking those over at MSNBC Hee-Haw, which I watch so you don't have to.
If beef is what's for dinner for your family, get ready for some Fred Flintstone-sized sticker shock.
That'll be $3.55. $3.55?
The wholesale price of high-quality beef is up 34% since last year, and the beef and veal category is weighing in with the largest price increase of any food group. One of the priciest proteins, bacon. It's going to cost you 40% more than it did at the beginning of the pandemic.
Definitely seen the prices go up on meat. It has gone up, yes. I would say about 10%, if not more.
The reason for the rising costs? The meat industry is facing the same woes as many others. Labor, packing, and shipping supply shortages, making it tougher to get the product to your plate.
The supply chain is actually not a chain. It's actually a jumbled mess. Everything needs to flow smoothly in order for product to hit the shelf for the customer to buy.
But have no fear. The Biden administration assures us that the inflation is transitory.
We take inflation very seriously.
Economists call all these things transitory effects.
These one-time increases in prices are likely to have only transitory effects on inflation.
There will be transitory impacts as it relates to inflation.
I believe it's transitory.
Temporary or transitory impact.
In the end, it will be transitory.
These inflation rises will be transitory, that they will come back down next year. Inflation is going to come down next year. Inflation will come down next year.
Talking inflation. The overwhelming consensus is going to pop up a little bit and then go back down.
People fully expect this inflation to be temporary.
There's nobody suggesting there's unchecked inflation on the way. No serious economist.
The president's Build Back Better agenda as a whole will ease some of that inflationary pressure.
The bipartisan infrastructure deal and Build Back Better agenda could likely ease inflationary pressures.
It will ease longer-term inflationary pressures.
We're going to ease inflationary pressure.
I don't think that these investments will drive up inflation at all. Build Back Better will not increase inflation.
The overall Build Back Better vision is designed to reduce inflationary pressures.
I have 17 Nobel laureates in economics sent me a letter recently saying that my proposals would actually reduce inflation.
17 Nobel laureate economists said that if we pass both of these plans, we would reduce inflation.
17 Nobel laureates in economics said it's going to lower inflation.
17 Nobel Prize winners in economics.
17 Nobel Prize winning economists.
17 Nobel laureates.
A total of 14, I think it was 14, Nobel laureate economists.
Since it is paid for, it would not increase inflation.
Wages have gone up higher, faster than inflation.
Monthly rates of inflation have already fallen substantially.
If we pass the other two things I'm trying to get done, we will in fact reduce inflation. Reduce inflation. Reduce inflation.
Now, one of the reasons we've got inflation is because of a sharply reduced energy supply. Recall under the dastardly Trump administration, we were energy self-sufficient. When the oil and gas costs go up, costs more to transport food to market, consumers have to pay more, not only at the gas pump, but also in the grocery store, costs more in electricity. Restaurants cost more, business lunches cost more, medical supplies cost more. And then taxes go up. And of course, people don't pay directly. Middle class gets squeezed because that's where the taxes are. Even CNN's Ryan Sliwa has admitted that, well, Biden's Build Back Better plan was not designed to fight inflation, even though Biden has said it's going to reduce inflation.
Just to add one thing to Ron's point on inflation, it's really fair to point out that the White House is playing catch up on this issue. Early this year, there were some very prominent Democratic economists who said, watch out, the signs of inflation are serious. Larry Summers most famously, and he said, you know what, Mr. President, you should take some of that immediate stimulus from the COVID bill that will risks juicing the economy and increasing inflation and put it into the long-term Build Back Better agenda that has less inflationary pressures. The White House was extremely dismissive of that point of view and went for the biggest possible stimulus in the COVID bill. And they've sort of were dismissive for months, frankly, about the risks of inflation. And only when the polls started showing that it was a major political problem for the White House, and then in Virginia and New Jersey, a lot of the exit polls showed this was top concern on voters' minds. They've sort of got religion, and they're reframing this BBB package as an inflation fighter, which, let's be honest, it was not designed to fight inflation. I mean, they can point to parts of it that arguably will have an impact, but this is they're playing catch up right now on this issue. Let's be honest, this plan is not designed to fight inflation. Over at CNN, say it ain't so. Curtis Sliwa up next. I'm Larry Elder, 888-971-SAGE.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Fine. I'm talking about Republican Glenn Youngkin taking back Virginia, leading to a sweep of the purple state, a blue state actually, into the red column. Not only Glenn Youngkin in a handily amassed victory, exactly as he planned it, exactly as he said it would come together, hold the margins down in Northern Virginia, sweep the central and southwestern and southeastern parts of it. Hampton Roads, a very big winning, Virginia Beach, a very big win for him. It was really repulsion at the school districts, repulsion at CRT, repulsion at Terry McAuliffe's trying to play a race card. So it's just a victory night. Let's go with Winsome Sears. You may not know Winsome. She is the first African-American woman elected to statewide office in the Commonwealth of Virginia. She was running alongside of Glenn Youngkin. I just want to begin with her because MSNBC didn't carry her speech last night, and it's a fine speech, and you should have heard it. Cut 26.
There are some who want to divide us, and we must not let that happen. They would like us to believe we are back in 1963 when my father came. We can live where we want. We can eat where we want. We own the water fountains. We have had a black president elected not once but twice, and here I am, living proof. In case you haven't noticed, I am black, and I have been black all my life.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Headlines, you know, it's a big Republican night. Joe Biden is waking up in Glasgow wondering where he is and thinking maybe I should have stayed home and helped Terry, but actually he did try and help Terry and it didn't help. And Kamala Harris, of course, got back and she didn't leave ever. And she tried to help Terry, and of course that backfired. President Obama, the anointed one, went to Virginia and could not move the needle because the needle was set by Glenn Youngkin, competent, conservative, calm, courageous, constitutionalist. It works. It works, it works, it works. Steve in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Good morning, Steve. Your state is in play, but I can't believe it's going to go Republican.
We got 1,200 vote lead with 98% of votes in. It's a huge win with 1 million more registered Democrats than Republicans.
Steve, I honestly, don't you know, my title of my 2004 bestseller, if it's not close, they can't cheat. So I just don't, you know, in my heart, I know New Jersey, right? And they're going to find those votes, aren't they?
It's going to be a knife fight. We're at the panels. It's going to be every vote's getting counted, but it's going to be really tight. But every legal vote's going to be counted. You can bet on that.
It's going to be a shock to that more than Virginia. They kind of brace themselves to lose in Virginia, not by this much, not to lose the House of Delegates, not to be swept, not to get crushed in Loudoun County. But New Jersey is the one that has Democrats this morning thinking, I like my job, I've got to get off this.
That they're going to go back to the old ways of policing, that we're going to take to the streets again. There will be riots, there will be fire, and there will be bloodshed. So there's no way that we're going to let some Gestapo come in here and harm our people. Right? We pray for peace, but black opportunities prepares for the worst. We have people in city council who can create problems for him. We have people in the streets who can create problems for this administration by shutting it down.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. That was Hawk Newsom, Black Lives Matter leader in New York, threatening blood in the event that newly elect Mayor Eric Adams reimposes the anti-gang unit. My next guest was born in Brooklyn in May of 1977. He founded the Magnificent 13. That's a group dedicated to reducing violent crime in New York City. The organization was later renamed Guardian Angels. He was a recent candidate for Republican for mayor of New York. He lost to President Eric Adams, the mayor-elect to whom I just now referred. He graciously offered his support because both of them ran on a tough-on-crime agenda. Please welcome back to the program, Curtis Sliwa. Curtis, how are you?
Oh, my hands across America to you, Larry. Last time I remember we were in Oaktown, Oakland together. We were back to back as you were being confronted by a lot of African Americans there who were questioning your validity, and I was giving you tactical air support and said, "What are you talking about? Larry's more of a homeboy than any of you."
I was born in the hood, Curtis, and as you know, I ran like you did. I ran for governor of California. LA Times called me, wait for it, the black face of white supremacy.
Yeah, I remember that. I had a good belly laugh. Eric Adams called me a racist. And remember, I lead a group not only throughout America, but now around the world that is predominantly black and Hispanic. But I guess they're stupid and they're just following a white racist. How ridiculous this has become.
Well, Curtis, that's how they roll. The Lieutenant Governor-elect of Virginia, Winsome Sears, by Michael Eric Dyson, was called black mouth moving for white supremacy.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, now notice how all of a sudden Eric Adams, who spent 2 summers ago painting Black Lives Matter in the streets with his friend, his partner, his teammate, Bill de Blasio, now is confronted by the very group that he was supporting 2 years ago when there was insurrection, looting, and rioting in the streets. So let's see how he deals with this now that the roles are reversed.
It's going to be real interesting, Curtis. So we had a black female LA DA and first black female DA ever. And at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, Black Lives Matter came to her front porch, and her husband pulled a gun on him. Husband ended up being prosecuted. And so it's very interesting how this stuff happens with these people that purport to care about black lives. As you know, in New York, demographically, about half of the city is black and Hispanic, but about 95% of the perps and the homicide victims are black and Hispanic.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting. I know Hawk Newsom a long time. He's quite a character, lives up in the Bronx. He's what we call a Mameluke, lives at home on his own, doesn't have any responsibilities, yet somehow, Larry, he's able to afford a brand new Cadillac Escalade. You're talking about a vehicle that's like $85,000, $100,000 off of the assembly line, rolls around in a bullhorn, and always holds court. And he's insulated. He could do almost anything, and the police have been told not to arrest Hawk Newsom.
Wow.
And so he proudly and boldly, with brazenness, goes around threatening people, intimidating people, and they pay him off. They pay him off to go away. I remember he stopped at this restaurant, Carmine's. There was a dispute about whether the black couple, the black group there from Texas, had shown the vaccine passport and their ID. There was a fight in which the group attacked the concierge and a few other people. He shows up the next night. He's basically looking to shake down the restaurant chain because that's how he subsidizes himself. So now we'll see. Eric Adams, who helped prop up Black Lives Matter by painting Black Lives Matter in the streets of New York City 2 summers ago, how is he going to knock down this guy? It's like Dr. Frankenstein. Mm-hmm. You created Frankenstein. Now you've got to destroy Frankenstein.
My guest is Curtis Sliwa, his website, guardianangels.org. Curtis, talk to me about this anti-gang unit that Eric Adams is thinking about reinstating.
Well, he's actually absolutely correct. You need an undercover unit of men and women, many of them who already were very proficient at what they did. They would go undercover. They would ride around in FedEx trucks, yellow cabs. They would blend into the scenery, and they would preemptively stop gangs before they would launch drive-by shootings and retaliatory shootings. Very similar to what has existed out in Los Angeles County and city of Los Angeles for years. If you don't preemptively get ahead of the curve, then the gang violence just consumes whole neighborhoods. So Bill de Blasio, when he defunded the police to the tune of $1 billion, eliminated the anti-crime unit. Eric Adams wants to bring the anti-crime unit back, but with variations, with reforms. All right, I give him the benefit of the doubt. He's the brand new mayor. Now he's got to actually do it. Now that Hawk Newsom has stood up and defied him and said, we'll burn New York City down, we'll riot, we'll loot, we'll take to the streets, Eric Adams must follow through. He cannot dilute this. He cannot go around it. I support him in an effort to put into place an anti-crime unit, because without which we're not going to knock down the escalating gang violence and gun violence that is plaguing the inner city communities of our city.
My guest is Curtis Sliwa, founder of Guardian Angels. Again, his website is guardianangels.org. Recently ran for mayor as a Republican, city of New York. Curtis, when I was running, I had a Zoom call with a bunch of black pastors, maybe 8 of them or so, and I told them that the biggest problem facing the black community is a large number of kids who enter the world without a father married to the mother. Something like about 75% of the kids, black kids who enter the world without a father married to the mother. And I said it is just not true that the police are engaging in systemic racism. There are bad cops, but the studies have shown, I told these pastors, that if anything, the police are more hesitant, more reluctant to pull the trigger on a black suspect than a white suspect. They went absolutely ballistic, told me I was wrong, told me that I was a self-hater. They went nuts, Curtis.
No, you're absolutely correct. Look, I'm a guy in the streets, 42 years. I've been in every urban area in the United States. I have Guardian Angels all over the country. You name the gang, I've had to go up against them in an adversarial way.
Curtis, 45 seconds, Curtis.
Yeah, and I will tell you this, sitting down with gangbangers and trying to negotiate with them is not the answer. Lock them up, throw away the key, introduce positive role models, male role models, to men and women in the inner city area, and you will begin to recover that part of the community that is being forgotten, is being lost, is being turned over to gangsterism.
Well, Curtis, thank you very much for coming on. Congratulations for having enough guts to run for mayor. I know, having been a candidate, what kind of sacrifice it is, the kind of grief they put you through, how unfair the media treats you. But again, congratulations for doing what a lot of people do. They talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. God bless you, Curtis.
We got to continue on in our missions, Larry. You on the West Coast, me on the East Coast.
You and me, buddy. You got it. 888-971-SAGE. I am Larry Elder.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
In light of the belief of the CDC that 99%, 99% of the, help me out here, of the vaxxed, 99% of those hospitalized are not vaxxed, right? That's the claim. Or deaths. Okay. I think it's both hospitalized and deaths. Anyway, so if that's true, why do people give a hoot if people are not vaxxed? They're clearly not affecting the vaxxed, right? Given the spectacular success rate of the vaccination, why do you care if the next guy is vaxxed or not? And don't tell me, because they're taking up hospital space. So are motorcyclists who don't have helmets. So are folks who had men who had unprotected sex during the AIDS epidemic. So are cigarette smokers for a while. This is a new thing. You're taking up hospital space. So there is no threat to you who are vaccinated by the unvaccinated. You can't have it both ways. It's 99% effective, but you must get vaxxed. It's all about control. I told you that. That's how I began the hour. No, I actually began the hour about the Seattle city attorney race. But I want you to understand what this is about. You have the audacity to defy the left? F you. That is all it is about. That is what it is about for Joe Biden. The weakest, wimpiest guy to ever hold the office of president. He is the antithesis of a leader. We have a sheep as president.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Fine. I'm talking about Republican Glenn Youngkin taking back Virginia, leading to a sweep of the purple state, a blue state actually, into the red column. Not only Glenn Youngkin in a handily amassed victory, exactly as he planned it, exactly as he said it would come together, hold the margins down in Northern Virginia, sweep the central and southwestern and southeastern parts of it. Hampton Roads, a very big winning, Virginia Beach, a very big win for him. It was really repulsion at the school districts, repulsion at CRT, repulsion at Terry McAuliffe's trying to play a race card. So it's just a victory night. Let's go with Winsome Sears. You may not know Winsome. She is the first African-American woman elected to statewide office in the Commonwealth of Virginia. She was running alongside of Glenn Youngkin. I just want to begin with her because MSNBC didn't carry her speech last night, and it's a fine speech, and you should have heard it. Cut 26.
There are some who want to divide us, and we must not let that happen. They would like us to believe we are back in 1963 when my father came. We can live where we want. We can eat where we want. We own the water fountains. We
Larry, I'm sure you're all over this already, but we got Barack Obama, a former two-term president, telling people at the climate summit to harness their anger. Now, after everything we heard about Donald Trump inciting Chuck Schumer's erection on January 6th, and all the dog whistle words they use to describe us, if this isn't the complete hypocrisy, what is? This doesn't qualify for a Dr. Dre hold up. I don't know what does. Take care, Larry. We love you.
And don't forget the new DNC head saying Republican Party has become the party of fear and fascism. But Obama says we should harness our anger. It's a joke. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Now, we're ready to launch something really big. I want you to be part of it. If you like listening to my show, you're going to love watching it also on the SalemNewsChannel.com. And again, right now, you can watch it on YouTube.com/The Larry Elder Show Radio live right now. Or the app with the same name, loaded on the Apple or Android store, or watch us on Roku. Just type Salem News Channel into the search bar and come check us out. We're the antidote to the mainstream media, and soon we'll begin adding new TV-only hours. This is only going to get bigger and better. Thank you for all you're doing to make this thing successful. We're on a mission, and you are a huge part of it. Obama says we ought to harness our anger. This is a guy who said racism is in America's DNA, having gotten elected with a higher percentage of the white vote than John Kerry did 4 years earlier. I mean, honestly. This is a guy who gave a speech before the United Nations and said to the world, you know, we have our own problems in America. There's a place called Ferguson, referring to the shooting death of Michael Brown, a man who did not have his hands up, did not say don't shoot. And I'm going to be talking about this tonight on the Laura Ingraham Show. You know about the Kenosha matter with Kyle Rittenhouse being tried right now for the murder of 2 people? Well, the reason there were protests is because of the false narrative that Jacob Blake, the one who was shot and then put in ultimately paralyzed from the waist down, that he was unarmed. His father said he was unarmed. He wasn't unarmed. He had a knife. He even acknowledged he did, dropped it, and then picked it up again. How many of these things start with a fake narrative? Michael Brown had his hands up. He was running away. got shot in the back. No, he was running towards the officer. His DNA was found on the officer's gun, for Christ's sake. Honestly. And as I was saying to Curtis Sliwa, studies have shown for decades that if anything, the police are more hesitant, more reluctant to pull the trigger on a black suspect than a white suspect. And when I said that to these black pastors, they went absolutely nuts. And I said to them, isn't this good news? Isn't it good news that the police are not using deadly force against black people just because they're black? Isn't that good news? Even Mark Lamont Hill, he's a professor, never saw a race card he didn't pick up. In an interview, he conceded that studies have shown that the police are not using deadly force against black people just because they're black. Even he conceded it. And I said that to these pastors, and they just went nuts, began attacking me. I said, far and away, the number one problem in the black community is the number of kids who enter the world without a father married to the mother. They didn't want to hear it. These are pastors. I said, these are facts. Isn't this good news? And I mentioned the black Harvard economist named Roland Fryer, front page article in the New York Times, July 2016, did a study and found out the police were not using deadly force against blacks just because they were black. He said the results were the most shocking of his career because he launched the study because of the deaths of Michael Brown and Freddie Gray and Eric Gardner. He just knew the police were using deadly force against black people just because they were black. He just knew it. And so he did a study to corroborate what he thought he knew, and he went where the data led him. Just the opposite of what he thought. He said the findings were the most shocking of my professional career. Now, he did say the police were slightly more likely to use non-deadly force against blacks, but in my opinion, that's because they didn't want to get to deadly force. They didn't want to take it to DEFCON 1. We talked about a city in California called Rialto, roughly a population of about 100,000. It represents pretty much evenly the demographic breakdown of California. And the cops were mandated to wear body cams. Many of them resisted at first. But after a year, you know what happened? Complaints against the police were reduced 90%. And officer use of force reduced 50%, not because the officers did anything differently, but because the suspects, civilians, behaved differently. Isn't that good news? 888-971-SAG. When we come back, Alfredo Ortiz of Job Creators Network filing a lawsuit against the Biden administration for vaccine mandates for private employers. Now, 3-week quick start, $19.95, less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, what we're talking about, less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. The doctors who formulated Relief Factor believe our body are designed to heal. And I agree with them. And that's why they selected 4 100% drug-free ingredients to deal with pain from a different metabolic pathway. That's why approaching from 4 different angles. That may very well be why over 70% of those who order the 3-week quick start go on to order more. If you've got back, shoulder, neck, hip, foot, knee pain from exercise, or just getting older, consider the 3-week quick start. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com. 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
If you can stop an earthquake, doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
That we have this unbelievable upset victory for Glenn Youngkin and the Attorney General and the Lieutenant Governor. Why did the good guys win, Patty?
Because we did use common sense and facts. Here in Loudoun County, the parents were being targeted and blacklisted by elected officials on the school board, using constituents to blacklist other constituents. We found out, we made a big stink about it. We said this is un-American. And the more we uncovered through FOIAs, through gathering information, we come to find out that this school board wanted to silence us. They didn't want parents to get involved with their children's education.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
And forgive me, I'll be a little bit tongue-tied because I'm functioning on a few hours sleep, but I don't mind. I'm so ecstatic I can't see straight. I am so proud of the voters of Virginia. I'm proud of the voters in New Jersey. I'm proud of the voters in Minneapolis rejecting the insanity of abolishing the police department. A wave of sanity swept across the land. We're getting our country back. And you need to sit back and appreciate it. You need to let that soak in. We're taking our country back from the radical crazies who have hijacked it. And you need to enjoy the moment.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
You know, Larry, there's some great science backing an alternative to the vaccine. The Otto Warburg won 2 Nobel Prizes in 1931 and one in 1944. And the one in 1944 was for if you have abundant oxygen, you can eliminate cancer, bacteria, virus, and create alkalinity in your body. And all these people calling your program with all their problems, we've got an answer for them. Some more data on this. Look up Otto Warburg, OTTO Warburg, WARBURG.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio on this Veterans Day. Next hour, I'm going to play you the ceremony that my dad received posthumously for his Congressional Gold Medal for being one of the first black Marines. They were called the Montford Point Marines. That'll be next hour. Also later on this hour, remember the truck driver I told you who was running against the longtime New Jersey Senate president? Well, he won the race. Reportedly spent about $153. All of that and more. Now, my next guest is president and CEO of Job Creators Network. They are fighting the mandate by filing a lawsuit. In order to help them, go to blockthemandate.com. That's blockthemandate.com. Please welcome back to the program President and CEO of Job Creators Network, Alfredo Ortiz. Alfredo, how are you?
I am doing great, Larry. First of all, I just wanted to thank all the veterans out there who fought so hard for all the freedoms that you and I enjoy today and the rest of this country. Absolutely.
Alfredo, there's so much to cover, so much that's happened since the last time we've talked. Let's start out with the lawsuit. As you know, the Biden administration is mandating that employers, private employers, who have over 100 employees, mandate that their employees be vaccinated. I think he's planning on doing that against smaller companies as well, Alfredo.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and we take great exception with the way the Biden administration has already done this particular mandate in terms of how he's portraying it to the American public, saying it only impacts the largest employers of our country. Larry, when I hear that, I think Coca-Cola, Delta, Wells Fargo. I don't think of Joe and Bill's, manufacturing in Sioux City, Iowa, that has 120 people. But those are the very people that are being impacted the most, especially in this labor shortage.
Alfredo, I'm assuming you agree with me that it is simply not legal.
It completely not legal. We believe it's complete government overreach. OSHA has not been given that kind of authority by Congress.
Now, of course, we've had the governor races in Virginia, upset win by Glenn Youngkin, almost a win in New Jersey. Does that tell the administration anything about these vaccine mandates, in your opinion?
Well, you would think that it would, but this administration continues to be tone deaf, Larry. I mean, the results of the Virginia election are just, truly a preview of how Americans are feeling about the state of our country. And right now, most Americans are feeling that we are definitely going in the wrong direction. In fact, I think I saw the most recent survey saying that 70% of people now believe that we are going in the wrong direction as a country.
Mm-hmm. And independents feel that way, too. Of course, that's where the money is, independents, right. And they're very, very unhappy with the Biden administration. Now, the jobs report for October came out. Give me your analysis on that.
Well, we added about 530,000 jobs there, Larry. I mean, a good number, but the problem is it could have been better, right? And we just firmly believe that a lot of it is because the war on small business. Look, our small business owners that we talk to and we survey are pulling back on job hiring because they're concerned about the future. They're concerned about the inflation. They're concerned about supply chain issues. They're concerned about these mandates that potentially they may face. And so this is why they're holding back. So the numbers could have been better, Larry.
My guest is Alfredo Ortiz, President and CEO of Job Creators Network. Alfredo, the Biden administration maintains that wages are rising faster than inflation.
Well, that's absolutely just incorrect. I mean, again, I love how they make up their own facts and through lies, and then pretend that the American public should actually believe them. But they're absolute lies, Larry. I mean, we know that inflation, actually, they call it the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, increased to 6.2%, and wage growth is not keeping up with that. Last number I saw, it was about 5.1%. So that's really a pay cut for Americans. So you have the Trump administration giving us tax cuts. The Biden administration is giving us pay cuts.
Alfredo, we have about a minute left. If you want to help Alfredo with his lawsuit against the Biden administration, go to blockthemandate.com. That's blockthemandate.com. Alfredo, the Biden administration says the inflation that we're facing is transitory, temporary. It's going to go away soon.
Oh, come on, man. That's a bunch of malarkey.
Come on, man.
No, but it is. It's just a bunch of malarkey, Larry. This is not transitory. They're already saying that we can probably see this all the way through the fall of 2022.
We have a $1.7 trillion, Build Back Better plan waiting in the wings. Assuming that were to happen, what would happen to inflation?
Well, I like calling it the Build Back Broke plan because that's what's going to happen. We're going to break this country and we're going to go broke and inflation is going to go through the roof. I'm already estimating, Larry, that we're going to end this year at very close to 8% inflation rate.
Mm-hmm. Now, we talked the last time about what we're calling the Freedom to Cheat Act, that is to nationalize voting procedures all over the country. And we've got a couple of voting-based bills that failed, and I wanted to get your take on that.
Look, I mean, we got to continue to pass laws that make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. Just like Georgia did, like Texas is doing, we need to make sure that the integrity of our vote is sacrificing to anything else, really, and we've got to protect that. Again, we're on Veterans Day here where Americans, died for our freedoms, and this is one of the freedoms, the freedom to vote and the freedom to have fair elections.
Mm-hmm. Alfredo, I've always found it fascinating. When I ran for governor out here in California, I was asked over and over again about whether or not I think the 2020 election was stolen. Hillary, for 4 years, referred to 2016 as stolen, called Donald Trump illegitimate. Al Gore still believes that the 2000 election was stolen. Stacey Abrams called the 2018 Georgia gubernatorial election stolen. Nobody seems to ask these Democrats whether or not they believe those elections were stolen. And if so, are you going to chastise Al Gore or Hillary or Stacey Abrams for promoting, quote unquote, the big lie?
Yeah, see, and that's the thing. In Georgia, which I followed very closely what was going on there, both sides, Republicans and Democrats, said there were issues with voting. And so that state took the action amongst its legislature to make sure that got eliminated. And again, that they put a policy in place and a system in place that made it easy to vote and hard to cheat.
Alfredo,
I think that's what we need to focus on.
We're going to have to leave it there. Alfredo Ortiz, President and CEO of Job Creators Network. If you want to help him with his lawsuit against the federal government over the vaccine mandates, go to blockthemandate.com. That's blockthemandate.com. As always, Alfredo, thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Larry. God bless.
We'll talk soon. Now, $800 a year, that's how much the average family puts back in their pocket every year by ditching Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile and switching to Pure Talk. Same great coverage, same great 5G networks, but half the cost. The coverage, U.S.-based customer service, fantastic, pricing fair, like wholesale prices. Unlimited talk, text, and 6 gigs of data for just $30 a month. Right now, get Pure Talk's Black Friday pricing on phones like the iPhone 12, just $479. 30-day risk-free guarantee. You ought to be a Pure Talk customer just as I am. Here's what you need to do. From your cell phone, dial pound 250 and say, Larry Elder. You'll save 50% off your first month. That's pound 250 and say Larry Elder. Pound 250 and say Larry Elder. Some restrictions apply. Call for details. Pound 250 and say Larry Elder.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
That we have this unbelievable upset victory for Glenn Youngkin and the Attorney General and the Lieutenant Governor. Why did the good guys win, Patty?
Because we did use common sense and facts. Here in Loudoun County, the parents were being targeted and blacklisted by elected officials on the school board using constituents to blacklist other constituents. We found out, we made a big stink about it. We said this is un-American. And the more we uncovered through FOIAs, through gathering information, we come to find out that this school board wanted to silence us. They didn't want parents to get involved with their children's education.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store.
Hello, Larry. My name is Brendan. I'm actually calling from Phoenix, Arizona. I actually just wanted to call and just commend you and want to say thank you so kindly for your due diligence and your time and your efforts. Especially your voice of reason is what I'm basically most thankful for. So I appreciate all the hard work you do, all the sensible and common sense things. You have a way of reminding people. I just want to wish hopefully one day you will have consideration for a run at the presidency yourself. Take care. God bless.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I'm Larry Elder. I appreciate that, but I believe Donald Trump's going to run, and that will take all the oxygen out of the room. Not that I'm considering it, but I believe Donald Trump is going to run. I think the base wants him to run. Obviously, a lot of Democrats hate his guts. That's not going to go away, but I believe he's going to run. And given how poorly the Biden administration has performed and how low-rated Kamala Harris is, I believe that we have a substantially good chance of retaking the White House in 2024. And, of course, retaking the House next year, and hopefully even retaking the Senate. 888-971-SAGE. When we come back, I'm going to play you the ceremony that was arranged for my late father at Camp Pendleton out here in California by former Congressman Dana Rohrabacher. My dad received a Congressional Gold Medal for being one of 20,000 of the first black Marines. Also, the New Jersey truck driver who spent $153 has now dethroned the longtime Senate leader in New York. Peter is in California. Peter, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
How's it going? Very happy Veterans Day.
Thank you. Happy Veterans Day to you, too.
Thank you. First, I didn't serve in the military, but I'm thankful and grateful for our veterans everywhere. And thank you for your service, Randolph and Kirk Elder. Semper Fi.
Same here, Peter. I didn't serve either. Every male in my family did. My dad served. Both my brothers did. My brother was actually a Vietnam vet. My older brother, Kirk, was a Vietnam-era vet. He was in the Navy. My little brother was in the Army.
Yeah, he was in the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
So, thank you for a second. I appreciate how you watch CNN, Fox News, the hee-haw, so I don't have to. You and your show preach the gospel of common sense, traditional values, and I just want to say thank you. Third, I miss the good old days when we were energy independent and we had cheaper gas prices. It's sad to see we're not energy independent anymore. Critical energy infrastructure projects have been killed off, and inflation has driven up fuel prices for Americans' homes and vehicles to levels not seen in more than 6 years ago. We've got a Democratic Party that's solely detached from middle America. For example, lawmakers in the Midwest don't want President Biden to get rid of the Line 5 pipeline that has provided lots of jobs for the Midwest. Please, Mr. Biden, listen to the 11 Democratic Party senators are calling you to consider all tools available at your disposal to lower gasoline prices, including a release from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and a ban on crude oil exports.
Peter, thank you very much for the call. I'm not down on releasing oil from the Strategic Oil Reserve. That's for wars, natural disaster, that sort of thing. But you're right. He's threatening to shut down yet another pipeline. I kid you not. I am Larry Elder.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
So anyway, you start with that notion of 15,000 people under that bridge in Del Rio. 15,000, okay? These are the numbers released by DHS. Number returned to Haiti, 1,401. Number in Customs and Border Patrol custody, 3,206. Number remaining at the bridge in Del Rio, according to DHS, 3,881. So, I'm sorry, those three numbers that I just gave you are about 8,500. Where's the other 8,000? Where are they? And the answer might be St. Louis. That might be in the suburbs of Dallas and Fort Worth, right outside my door. Because this is the plan. Do not let yourself be caught walking around saying, this Biden-Harris administration, they're just inept. They don't have a plan. Oh, yes, they do. Huge waves of a needy underclass pouring across our border so that you instantly need far more social services, far more government spending, because that is the crack pipe of the left. And then ultimately, all of these people are going to vanish into the tapestry of America, where they will eventually be normalized and ultimately, of course, energized for decades of grateful Democrat voting.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
It's like a ripple throughout society. We've got Dr. Fauci hectoring everybody who's had COVID who didn't get a vaccination, even though they have immunity. But I'm talking about not the people who refuse to be vaxxed, but the people who've had it and yet we have 2 million people scheduled to come across the border in the fiscal year, and he's absolutely silent about it.
That's right.
He can't even utter the word.
Well, it's like the silence of the unmasked demonstrators. And the medical profession said that's fine because it's
all 1,200 of them. I remember that well.
That's right.
And it's so what we're doing is we're creating not just exemptions for illegal aliens, but we're elevating them in some sense. We're not asking them to follow the law. We're not asking
right.
them
So
to
I want to know the original sin here. Is the original sin Ted Kennedy? Is the original sin the inability of the World War II generation to pass on American values? What's the original sin?
I think it's two things. It was the affluence and the leisure created by the 6%, just enormous affluence that was created, 6% a year GDP in the 50s and 60s, and we created the most leisured and affluent society, and it created certain expectations about human nature that create a guy like Ted Kennedy and create his idea that we're so wealthy, we're so powerful, we're so liberal, we're so wonderful that we're going to extend this and feel so good about ourselves and start deliberately having a policy where we don't apply the old rules of assimilation, integration, or border enforcement.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Because the left is trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out, again, who's going to comply. Are you going to comply? Who's going to resist? Are you going to be willing to resist? How much power and coercion, this is what the left is trying to figure out, will it take to break the rest of us, the nonconformists? And who are the reliable, useful idiots? And sadly, there's plenty of those in the media. I've been telling you time and time again, we can't trust our institutions, the media being one of them. If you want to know what the left is thinking, you can look at the New York Times. You can figure out the angles they're coming from. There's other places, Vox, Slate, so on, etc. You can figure out, and you should know where they're coming from. Quite frankly, Washington Post is another one. Huffington Post is another one, and you can figure out where the left is coming from.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
To hear the White House press secretary blame Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott and other Republican governors for playing politics by trying to preserve jobs, not let people get fired over the vaccine mandate. What's the political gain for a governor to stand up to a tyrannical machine and say, you're not going to fire people because they don't want to put a medicine in their arm? You can't try to draw that line in the sand and say, well, the government shouldn't do it, but businesses can. We're either going to fire people over a personal medical decision or we're not. You're splitting hairs when you say, well, now the government, Gary Kelly flat out said, we don't want to do this at Southwest Airlines. He knows that this is a work stoppage. What's happened at Southwest, it isn't weather. They're not having any computer glitches. They got people working who aren't going to show up, and they're going to try to send Southwest a message. And Gary Kelly, the CEO of Southwest, admitted it by saying, we don't want this. Biden's making us do it. The government's making us do it. These zealots in charge, the kind of tyrannical governors we saw putting lines into Home Depot, and you can go to the garden section, but you can't go to the towel section, and all this crap. Put a mask on to walk to your table and take the mask off when you sit at the table. Like you can't spread COVID at the table, but you can when you're walking to the men's room. Are you kidding me? Would you stop it? And worst of all, forcing people to take a vaccine or get fired.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. Happy Veterans Day.
Ladies and gentlemen, the commanding officer of 5th Marine Regiment, Colonel Jason Bowen.
Congressman Rohrabacher, General Colonies, General Mundy, members of the Elder family, members of the Moffett Point Marine Association, the 1st Marine Division Association, Dana Point Support Group, fellow commanders, Sergeants Major, Marines, and sailors. We are honored that you joined us today to recognize the service of one of our own, Staff Sergeant Randolph Elder. It is appropriate that we hold this ceremony here on the hallowed ground in which the Fighting 5th Marines memorializes the service and the sacrifice of our brothers in arms. I use the word brothers because that is what we are. The Marine Corps is a family, and our motto of Semper Fidelis, or always faithful to our God, to our country, and to our Corps, creates a bond that nothing can sever. So just as we remember those of this fine regiment who fell in battle, we also remember all of those who once wore the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. Staff Sergeant Elder was one of these men. He was our brother. But it wasn't always this way. In the days leading up to World War II, the United States was a segregated society in which the African American community faced bigotry, racial prejudice, and discrimination. It was not until June 25th of 1941, just 5 months before the bombing of Pearl Harbor thrust us into the Second World War, that President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued an executive order, number 8802, and first opened the door for African Americans to serve in all branches of the armed services. He stated, in affirming the policy of full participation in the defense program by all persons, regardless of color, race, creed, or national origin, all departments of the government, including the armed forces, shall lead the way in erasing discrimination over color and race. But even with this direction, the Marine Corps was slow to embrace bringing African Americans into its ranks. In fact, many doubted whether African Americans would meet the high standards that the Marine Corps was known for. There was little doubt about how some in the Marine Corps felt about accepting these men into the Corps when the Commandant at the time stated, "The Negro race has every opportunity now to satisfy its aspirations for combat in the Army, a very much larger organization than the Navy or Marine Corps. And their desire to enter the naval service is largely, I think, to break into a club that doesn't want them." Regardless of the Commandant's protest, our nation's civilian leadership saw the need for equity and allowing Americans and African Americans to serve proudly in the nation's naval service, and announced in April 1942 that a battalion of 900 African Americans would be formed in the Marine Corps once suitable training sites were established. The battalion would be organized into a composite defense battalion consisting of coastal artillery, anti-aircraft artillery, tanks, and infantry to defend overseas bases like those of Wake, Johnson, and Midway Islands that had already seen action against Japanese forces in the opening salvos of World War II. But before the battalion could be formed, it first needed a place to train and recruits to fill its ranks. The site chosen to train the first African American Marines was a rugged and heavily wooded area, 5.5 acres large, at a site near Jacksonville, North Carolina, called Montford Point. Montford Point was located near a sprawling area near the New River that would soon become known as Camp Lejeune, the major East Coast combat training site for Fleet Marine forces at the time, and still today. The first recruits were used to build the now famous camp of wooded huts so others could follow and begin their training. Soon they would all be braving a variety of threats, ranging from the swagger sticks of tough drill instructors to the snakes, mosquitoes, and bears that inhabited the area. As the camp was built, the call went out, and the country's African American communities responded. Recruits started piling in from the north and from the south, from all walks of life. They came for different reasons. Some wanted the challenge of being a Marine, some wanted to earn a living, but they all came to serve their country honorably, regardless of still being treated like second-class citizens. Randolph Elder was one of these men. We are honored to be joined this morning by Larry and Kirk Elder, Staff Sergeant Elder's two surviving sons and their families. Randolph Elder was born in Athens, Georgia in 1915, and he grew up during the Great Depression. He would work a number of odd jobs, such as being a bellboy, a shoe shiner, a valet, and a cook, and before becoming a porter on the railroad and getting his first taste of California. Like many Americans at the outbreak of World War II, Randolph Elder chose to serve his country, but he wouldn't settle for any service. He wanted to be one of the best. Although he knew it would be challenging, Randolph enlisted in the Marine Corps and would be sent to Montfort Point, where he would earn the title of Marine. Based on past job experience, Private Elder at the time was made a cook, a job critically important to the Marine Corps. Because any Marine will tell you that there are two things you don't mess with a Marine, his pay and his chow. Living up to the ethos of the Corps, of every Marine a rifleman and a fighter, regardless of what their primary job is, Private Elder was trained for combat and was sent overseas to the Pacific Theater to prepare for the expected invasion of Japan. He would spend his time in the Pacific on the island of Guam and performed so well he was promoted 4 times, attaining the rank of Staff Sergeant. Like many veterans following the end of the war, Randolph Elder was challenged to find work, but the perseverance, work ethic, and commitment to excellence that he learned growing up during the Depression and as a Marine would lead to him eventually opening up his own restaurant in the Pico Union area of Los Angeles. He would faithfully run the Elder Snack Bar for 30 years, raising a family in the process and instilling many of the values he learned as a Marine into his sons. Having gone through a time of racism and bigotry, Randolph Elder overcame. He would raise his sons to understand that the sky is the limit and they should follow their dreams. But his legacy goes beyond that of his immediate family. The hard work, superior performance, and professionalism of Staff Sergeant Elder and his fellow Montfort Point Marines broke down the barriers and opened the doors to future generations of African Americans, resulting in a Marine Corps today in which one is judged on the value they bring to the table and not by their race, color, or gender.
So happy Veterans Day to all you veterans out there. And speaking of our military, Pentagon spokesman John Kirby admitted that they do not know how many family members remain, American citizen family members remain in Afghanistan.
John, can you please update us on the number of immediate family members of U.S. service members in Afghanistan?
Update you in the number?
Yeah.
I don't have a whole number on that, no.
Okay, so, I mean, the withdrawal ended on August 30th, and today is November 10th. I mean, how is it possible that the department doesn't know how many immediate family members are still left
I didn't say
in Afghanistan?
I didn't say we didn't know. I said I don't have a number for you. We believe it's...
And the Pentagon spokesman says Joe Biden thinks climate change is equally important as the threat posed by China.
Which is a bigger threat, the climate or China?
I think we get paid to examine all the threats to our national security. And I don't know that it does anybody good to put some sort of relative analysis assessment on that. You've heard the Secretary talk about the climate as a real and existential national security threat, and it is, not just to the United States, but to countries all over the world. And we consider China as the number one pacing challenge for the department. Both are equally important.
When we come back, CDC published an early release study that says it's not true that people who have natural immunity have a stronger immune system than they would if they were vaccinated. Really? 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. Do not leave town.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Boy, the state of Florida just fined Leon County $3.5 million because they fired 14 employees.
Coercion is just totally wrong. I think it's destroying trust in public health to the extent that there was still trust left over after all the stuff that's been done. But I think it's really, really negative, and I think you're going to end up driving people away.
You know, Governor DeSantis makes a great observation about the way the mandate is driving people in the other direction. And that's why companies have got to stop the mandates. This just has to stop. This isn't working. You cannot fire people over a vaccine.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
He is America. Captain America's trying, but nah, not so much. It's Superman. That's why kids have loved him. Adults have loved. When I saw Superman, I was, 8 years old, and I saw Christopher Reeve. You believed a man could fly. And I wanted to be an American, and now I am. But they've killed it. They killed James Bond in the new movie. Sorry, guys, spoilers. I've seen it. It's crap. Don't waste your time. They killed James Bond. Dead. Gone. Because I guess what? He was too sexy? Too toxic in his masculinity? Gone! And now they've done it with the Superman franchise. I posted this yesterday. Turned my Instagram on fire. The image of Superman in a homosexual kiss. Because DC Comics, I guess they don't want to sell comics. And now the new Superman, the son of Kal-El, is going to come out as gay, or as Jeff pointed out, I guess he's bi, right? Whatever, who cares? But here's the bottom line. This is beautiful. I hope Media Matters is writing this one up. Hey, Zachy Poo, are you typing? How many homosexuals, how many gay people are there in society? 1%, 1.5%. Let's be generous. Let's double it. 3%! 3% of America are gay. And the gay people I know, they don't rub it in your face.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Mark Milley admitted yesterday that for that pathetic pseudo-journalist Bob Woodward, for his new blockbuster dishing book of scandal, Mark Milley gave him hours of interviews. Hours? Sorry. How busy should the chairman of the Joint Chiefs be? Just curious. Is the Taliban ready to take back Afghanistan? These are interviews he gave this stinking year. This year. Is the Taliban is rising? Is China is building its military? Is Iran is threatening us? Is Russia is being ever more militaristic? You're sitting down for hours?
Hey, Larry. Phil from Philly. Listening to your guest here on Tuesday evening about the Jewish state of affairs and the younger Jews not supporting Israel. There's a lot of old Jews, Democrats in Congress, in the House of Representatives, and every one of them voted against funding for the Iron Dome. Maybe he should talk to them, because a lot of them are up in age like he is, and are probably survivors of the Holocaust, too. Why did they have to sell their souls to the Democratic Party for judgeships in Congress and whatever? I mean, it's just sickening what they're doing. Love you in Philly, Larry.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Coming up, how come Michigan still has 25,000 dead people on its voter rolls, including over 100 that registered after they died? We're talking about that later on. Going to be on the Laura Ingraham Show around 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific time this evening, so check that out. Now, the zip poll question I left you with yesterday. For your job, are you required to be vaccinated for COVID-19? 27% of you said yes. 73% of you said no. That's still a quarter of those who responded said that they are required to be vaccinated to keep their jobs. The poll for tonight is a two-parter. Have you watched a movie in a theater in the last 5 years, yes or no? Have you watched a movie in a theater in the last 2 years? In order to participate, you must be a member of the Zip Poll community. Go to your app store, download the Zip Poll by searching under Zip Poll USA. And in order to participate in this two-parter, you must use my code SAGE, S-A-G-E. Now, all of you out there know that MyPillow doesn't have the box stores. They don't have any shopping channels, and they've been part of the cancel culture. A lot of the stores that otherwise carry their product no longer carry it because Mike Lindell dared to question the legitimacy of the 2020 election. So now MyPillow wants to pass on the savings directly to you. You can get the lowest price in history of MyPillow for their classic standard MyPillow, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with promo code. They also have queen size, regularly $79.98, now $24.98 with promo code, or king size, regularly $89.98, now $29.98 again with promo code. MyPillow's not just pillows. They've got over 150 products, everything from sleepwear to My New Beds. Promo code also works on MyStore.com and FrankSpeech.com. Just go to MyPillow.com or call 1-800-890-1843 and be sure and use promo code Larry to take advantage of Mike's special offer on his standard MyPillow. That's MyPillow.com, promo code Larry, or 1-800-890-1843. Carol is in New Jersey. Carol, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Hi there, Larry. Oh, that was such a fantastic story about your dad.
Thank you.
It was amazing. And I wanted to mention Carl Jackson.
Yes.
When he filled in for you, I'm sorry you didn't win. I wanted you to win, but he was fantastic. And I hope to hear him on the air again because I called him several times. And I thought he was fantastic, and he needs to be back on the air, definitely.
Well, Carol, thank you for that. I know that Carl did a fantastic job. I've heard nothing but wonderful things about him. And Mr. McConnell, we ought to have him back on as a guest on a regular basis, too, because he bonded with the audience in ways that I'm very, very pleased with. I wanted somebody who'd be able to maintain the quality of our show, and he most certainly did. Carol, thank you so much for the kind words, too, about my dad. Jack is in Southern California. Jack, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Hey, Larry, love your show.
Thank
I voted for you. I appreciate everything. I just wanted to let you know, obviously, we have the most corrupt government on earth. Our government officials are totally corrupt. And I find it ironic today that in Afghanistan, on our Veterans Day, that Afghanistan, the new fifth largest army in the world, had a military parade with all of the weapons that our government purposely gave them. And I want to let...
I think you just broke off. I want to play you something that Joe Biden said back in 2008 about withdrawing precipitously from Afghanistan. Joe Biden in 2008. Listen to this.
There's a lot at stake in how we end this war. It makes a big difference how we end this war. And it makes a big difference to tell the American people the truth about what our options are in ending this war. If tomorrow the order goes out from I'm President of the United States, I issue an order, end the war today, begin to withdraw all American troops. It will take a year to get the American troops out. Do you hear me now? That's the truth. It will take a year to get them physically out. Now, if you leave all the equipment behind, you might be able to do it in 7 months. And you leave those billions of dollars of weapons behind, I promise they're going to be used against your grandchild and mine someday.
Now, Enes Kanter, the NBA player, the one who's called out China. China, of course, is a adversary. He talked about the NBA silence on China. LeBron James was not available for comment.
There is so many athletes, so many actors, so many singers, and so many people who has a platform are speaking out many of the issues out there in the world. But when it comes to China, when it comes to China's Communist Party, they're scared because they care too much about money, they care too much about business, and they care too much about endorsement deals. To me, the human rights and saving people's lives comes first. So that's why I wanted to do this project.
And the woke ball players of the NBA are Johnny on the spot when it comes to a white cop killing a black civilian, black suspect. But all of a sudden, radio free silence over China and the suppression of the 2 million Uyghurs. Odd, isn't it? Ron DeSantis, speaking of our borders being porous, which is also a threat to our national security, how many of these illegal aliens are COVID-19 positive? And, of course, Biden's been flying them all over the country, and Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, said, I'm going to put him on a bus and send him up to Delaware.
My view would be, why don't we, if they're going to come here, we'll provide buses and provide them. I will send them to Delaware and do that. I mean, if he's not going to support the border being secured, then he should be able to have everyone there. So we will do whatever we can in that regard, and we are absolutely going to do everything we can.
I watch a lot of CNN and MSNBC, so you don't have to. And all of a sudden, they don't really care about what's going on in the borders anymore. If it weren't for Fox News, most people wouldn't even know what's going on. Over 2 million illegal entry attempts this year, far more than we've seen in the last 20 or 30 years. And what they've done is they send a signal to illegal aliens. Come on down. What did Joe Biden say when he was running for office? There's going to be immediate surge on the border. And what did that illegal alien say to Martha Raddatz of ABC News? Said that he came up because of Joe Biden. And she seemed shocked. And she said, you mean if Trump had been president, you wouldn't have tried it? He said, no, I wouldn't have tried it. Joe Biden is giving us permiso. It's about the signal that you're sending to illegal aliens. And that's what Joe Biden has done. Why does Michigan have 25,000 dead people on its voter rolls? All of that and more. I'm Larry Elder.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
He is America. Captain America's trying, but nah, not so much. It's Superman. That's why kids have loved him. Adults have loved. When I saw Superman, I was 8 years old, and I saw Christopher Reeve. You believed a man could fly. And I wanted to be an American, and now I am. But they've killed it. They killed James Bond in the new movie. Sorry, guys, spoilers. I've seen it. It's crap. Don't waste your time. They killed James Bond. Dead. Gone. Because I guess what? He was too sexy? Too toxic in his masculinity? Gone!
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
When there is a clash on the left between separate preferred activist groups, who gets preference? Who wins? Now, on the left, they have a hierarchy. Not any different than a hierarchy that you would have in any sort of organization. You see, when the left has a moment of disagreement or conflict, it is very important to realize that there is a structure of what matters more than something else. I wrote a piece for humanevents.com where I wrote, it was literally called, "This Matters More Than That." Now, a great example of this is when Fauci, the lockdown artist, the anti-freedom activist, mad scientist, who is the best example of the technological and scientific elite that the left worships. When he was even confronted by a talk show host, where they asked Fauci, they said, so do you think that young people should stop hooking up via Tinder and basically having very promiscuous relationships? And Fauci said, well, you have to understand there's some risk to that. He didn't denounce it because he understood that if he came out against promiscuous behavior for young people, there'd be a revolution.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
But the issue that is animating conservatives, animating moderates in a way that is unexpected, that is moving people in massive numbers in the state of Virginia and nationally, is education. It's the number one issue. 77% of conservatives say that curriculum and education is a major issue. 51% of liberals say that it's a major issue. You go through the polling in Virginia. How much of a factor is each of these choices for your choice of governor? Abortion policy is 58% major factor, but curriculum on race and history, 62%. Now, the number one issue is Virginia's economy still, but getting up there is crime and safety in Virginia. These are pretty good numbers.
Hi, Larry. You know, these Democrats have got nothing to go on. They want power over this country. Americans won't vote for them. So let's let all the illegal immigrants from wherever into our country so that they can vote in the Democratic Party. Yeah, we want people from other countries coming in and voting for our leaders. I mean, come on, man. Is this thing on? I love when you say that. Is this thing on?
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Is there any doubt that if illegals turn citizens, turn voters, vote a Republican, the borders will be shut down tighter than Ted's hatband? Is there any doubt about that? Now, we are ready to launch something big. This is Larry Elder, 888-971-SAGE, ReliefFactor.com studio. We're ready to launch something big, and I want you to be part of it. If you like listening to my show, you will love watching it. Also on SalemNewsChannel.com, or the app with the same name, loaded on Apple or the Android store, or watch us on Roku. Just type Salem News Channel into the search bar and come check us out. We are the antidote to the mainstream media, and soon we'll be adding new TV-only hours. This is only going to get bigger and better. Thank you for all you are doing to make this thing successful. We are on a mission, and you are a huge part of it. If you go to my website, LarryElder.com, you can check out my latest column. It's called Virginia Blows Up the Larry Elder is the Wrong Candidate narrative. You heard that after I lost the race, a whole bunch of Democrats and others were saying, well, you know, the reason they lost the race is because Larry Elder was the wrong kind of candidate. He's the wrong kind of, you know, if he hadn't been so conservative, he hadn't been such a Trump supporter, he hadn't been this, he hadn't been that. And you look at the way they treated Glenn Youngkin and the way Terry McAuliffe and his supporters treated Winsome Sears, the black lieutenant governor-elect of Virginia. Here's what Michael Eric Dyson said about her. Michael Eric Dyson is a pundit on MSNBC Hee Haw. He's insufferable. Again, I watch it so you don't have to.
The problem is here, they want white supremacy by ventriloquist effect. There is a black mouth moving, but a white idea through the running on the runway of the tongue of a figure who justifies and legitimates the white supremacist practices.
As you know, I was called the black face of white supremacy, so she's called the same thing. And here this is a military vet Marine, Winsome Sears. Father came to America from Jamaica with $1.75 in his pocket. She served her country, ended up getting a master's. And what did he call her? Let's hear that again.
The problem is here, they want white supremacy by ventriloquist effect. There is a black mouth moving, but a white idea through the running on the runway of the tongue of a figure who justifies and legitimates the white supremacist practices.
Honestly, as I said, it didn't matter. And unlike California, where 75% of the registered voters are something other than a Democrat, other than a Republican, rather. Half of them registered as Democrats, another quarter registered as as independents. And the New York Times even said independents in California typically vote Democrat. And unlike California, the Republican candidate was not outspent 10-1. Unlike California, Terry McAuliffe had to debate his opponent. My opponent, of course, avoided debating with me like a pandemic, pardon the expression. Why does a baloney avoid the grinder? And the media in Virginia probably would not have allowed some columnist with a major newspaper referring to one of those candidates on the Republican side as the black face of white supremacy. That Yahoo or MSNBC said it, but he is not a member of the Virginia press. LA Times, biggest newspaper here in California. Headline, Larry Elder is the black face of white supremacy. Subheadline, you've been warned. And I told you that same newspaper, the LA Times, when a white woman wearing a gorilla mask attacked me with an egg. Headline in the story in the LA Times about it, Elder involved in altercation in Venice. And then a picture of a campaign supporter I was hugging, but the picture was frozen, so it looks as if I was slapping her. So if you just saw the picture in the headline, one would have assumed that the altercation was Elder being a perp, and the woman in the photograph was a victim. Because so many people complained, ultimately the LA Times took down the picture, but did not change the headline. They wouldn't have been able to pull that stuff in Virginia. And of course, school choice was an even bigger issue in Virginia than it was here in California, because if you live in San Francisco and LA, you got two nickels to rub together. You don't have your kid in a public school. That was not the case in Virginia, where a much greater percentage of the voters had their own kids in public schools. Now, vaccinated or not, everybody can benefit from a stronger immune system. Armor Gold's 9 key ingredients work together as a force multiplier. If you've learned anything over the past couple of years, it's that people with stronger immune systems have more favorable outcomes when disease strikes. I took Immunity Armor Gold, helped me sustain my energy and maintain my health when I was campaigning. Users report better sleep quality, healthier blood pressure levels. Made right here in the country, Immunity Armor Gold is GMO, gluten, and allergen-free, has no stimulants, artificial sweeteners, or colors. No pills to swallow because it's made in a powdered form, mixes with water. Go to immunityarmorgold.com, immunityarmorgold.com, one word. Use promo code Larry10 to get 10% off. Immunity Armor Gold, promo code Larry, 10% off. I'm Larry Elder.
Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Southwest was devastated this week, straight up lying, talking about it was the weather. The reason why 2,000 flights were canceled over the weekend, Friday through Sunday, and then over 300 or nearly 400 more on Monday. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of these people just called out sick. They just called out sick. They've been threatened by their employer because their employer happens to be a federal contractor, and because of that, because the federal government has their hands in Southwest Airlines, they have to comply. Now, here's the news. Nothing has happened as of yet, so technically, Southwest Airlines does not have to comply right now. They can wait for OSHA to make whatever edict they're going to lay out that has not been done thus far. but nonetheless, they suspect that it is coming down the pike. You get all these pilots, 10,000 pilots, 60 to 70% of these pilots are men and women that fought for our freedom, and we're going to kick them off the freaking job. Can you imagine the disruption? You talk about, we look at the ports in California. Can you imagine the supply chain disruption if now we can't even unload cargo ships and we're going to have fewer and fewer pilots? Fewer trained pilots? I don't want to fly. I don't know if they're going to be like United Airlines and bring social justice warrior pilots on. I don't even want to fly. Listen, if you're a pilot, I don't care if you're pink, red, white. I want the best doggone pilot when I'm sitting up in that can 30,000 feet above the ground.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Boy, the state of Florida just fined Leon County $3.5 million because they fired 14 employees.
Coercion is just totally wrong. I think it's destroying trust in public health to the extent that there was still trust left over after all the stuff that's been done. But I think it's really, really negative, and I think you're going to end up driving people away.
You know, Governor DeSantis makes a great observation about the way the mandate is driving people in the other direction. And that's why companies have got to stop the mandates. This just has to stop. This isn't working. You cannot fire people over a vaccine.
A reporter when he asked him about the compensation that he's thinking about giving to illegals who cross the border and the children in their custody have been separated, whether they're the parents or not. I guess he didn't mention Obama had done the same thing as well, because those pictures of the cages was 2014. But he also said legal, illegal, or legal should be compensated.
Not the way forward, Mr. President. As you were leaving for your overseas trip, there were reports that were surfacing that your administration is planning to pay illegal immigrants who are separated from their families at the border up to $450,000 each, possibly $1 million per family. Do you think that that might incentivize more people to come over illegally?
If you guys keep sending that garbage out, yeah, but it's not true.
So this is a garbage report?
Yeah.
Okay, so
$450,000 per person. Is that what you're saying?
That was separated from a family member at the border under the last administration.
That's not going to happen.
Jake, this is one of these cases where the president is quite imprecise and leaves it to his staff and us to be the precise ones. So here are the true facts. The Wall Street Journal was correct not reporting garbage when it reported that the Biden administration is in discussions to settle lawsuits brought on behalf of families affected by the family separation policy. And the Wall Street Journal was correct in reporting that these settlement discussions include talks of possible financial compensation. In fact, White House Deputy Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said today at the White House briefing that President Biden is comfortable with financial compensation as long as it ends up saving taxpayers money and helps people turn the page from the horrors of the Trump days. So why did President Biden talk about garbage, saying this report was garbage? Well, Jean-Pierre said he was referring specifically to that $450,000 amount the Wall Street Journal cited. Now, as a fact checker, I'm very skeptical of these day after explanations, clarifications that the White House and other politicians offer. In this case, I think it's plausible. If you listen to that exchange.
That was CNN, which I watched, so you don't have to.
I asked him a very direct question. That's right. And he dismissed the idea entirely. They are saying that he was just dismissing the $450,000, but if payments like this were completely out of the question, well, the president made it sound like the payments were completely out of the question, and now they're saying, no, just the $450,000 payments.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. The Center for Disease Control published a so-called early release study last week that says, quote, all eligible persons should be vaccinated against COVID as soon as possible, including unvaccinated persons previously infected. In other words, those who have already contracted the coronavirus should still be vaccinated because the natural immunity, the CDC insists, is not better than the protection provided by the vaccine. The Harvard professor of medicine, Martin Kulldorff, would beg to differ.
For almost 2,500 years, we have known about natural immunity. So it's strange that suddenly people are questioning that. The purpose of the vaccine is to have a milder disease if you get infected. But if you already have been infected, because maybe you were infected before the vaccine existed, then you already have excellent immunity. You have stronger, longer-lasting immunity than you have from the vaccines. So this idea that you're going to fire a nurse who was working in the COVID wards for many months taking care of COVID patients who got infected, who recovered, and who now have better immunity than those hospital administrators who were sitting at home or doing Zoom meetings and who then didn't get COVID but got vaccinated. They have less immunity than this nurse who was at the front line taking care of patients, but now those administrators are firing those nurses, even though they have better immunity. So we should do the opposite. Hospitals should hire nurses and other staff with natural immunity, and then they should assign those to the geriatric wards where there are older people who are extra sensitive, who are frail. And even if they're vaccinated, they might be at risk of dying from COVID. So we should utilize them to take care of older patients who are at risk. The same with nursing homes. Nursing homes should go out and try to hire people who have natural immunity. They're the ones who are least likely to infect the residents. And we're doing the opposite. They're being fired.
By the way, according to PJ Media, it is confirmed that the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, had an adverse reaction to the booster shot taken within days of having taken a flu shot. That it is not true that he canceled his trip to Scotland for the big climate change confab because of family obligations. It is not true that he said that he had a intervention from his family because of how hard he'd been working, how he had been signing all these bills, and how he had to stave off a recall election, and that's why he decided not to go to Scotland. There was also a rumor that he might be having an affair with some senior staffer again. I have no idea whether or not that's true. All I know is that it has now been reported that Gavin Newsom did have an adverse reaction to the booster shot that he had taken publicly on television within days of having taken the flu shot. If that is true, don't you believe the man has an obligation to be straight with the people of California, indeed America? This is a guy who wants to run for president, and I don't believe Joe Biden is going to run for re-election in 2024, and Kamala Harris is very, very unpopular. But I've heard that out here in California, if Kamala Harris runs for president in 2024, Gavin Newsom won't try to challenge her because they both are from California. They both would be going to the same donors. But if Kamala Harris is extremely unpopular, do you think she may step aside? I doubt it. I doubt it very seriously. But again, Gavin Newsom claimed that the reason he decided not to go to that conference, even though he was scheduled to go to it, was because, well, he had family obligations. He also said he was going to participate in the conference virtually and then canceled that. And then over the weekend, he showed up at a wedding for one of the Getty family members, a wedding that had over 100 people, by the way. I mention that because the woman that officiated over the wedding was Nancy Pelosi. She was not wearing a mask, even though there's a mandate here in California that if you are having an indoor gathering with more than 100 people, you are mandated to wear a face mask. Once again, Nancy Pelosi, as was the case when she was visiting her beautician, was not wearing a face mask, while telling you to do the same thing. This is one of the reasons why Gavin Newsom was recalled, because of the hypocrisy. Sitting up there at that French Laundry restaurant in Napa Valley, not wearing face masks, not engaging in social distancing, while his own kid was enjoying in-person private education while shutting down in-person education for the government-educated students here in the state of California. Now, 3-week quick start for Relief Factor. That's less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, we're talking about less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. Over 70% of those who order the 3-week quick start go on to order more, you know. And the docs who formulated Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, each of which are 100% drug-free ingredients to deal with pain from a different metabolic pathway. That's right, approaching pain from 4 different angles. That may very well be why so many people find such wonderful relief. If you're having back, shoulder, neck, hip, foot, knee pain from exercise or just getting older, consider ordering the 3-week quick start. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
To hear the White House press secretary blame Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott and other Republican governors for playing politics by trying to preserve jobs, not let people get fired over the vaccine mandate. What's the political gain for a governor to stand up to a tyrannical machine and say, you're not going to fire people because they don't want to put a medicine in their arm? You can't try to draw that line in the sand and say, well, the government shouldn't do it, but businesses can. We're either going to fire people over a personal medical decision or we're not. You're splitting hairs when you say, well, now the government, Gary Kelly flat out said, we don't want to do this at Southwest Airlines. He knows that this is a work stoppage. What's happened in Southwest, it isn't weather. They're not having any computer glitches. They got people working who aren't going to show up, and they're going to try to send Southwest a message. And Gary Kelly, the CEO of Southwest, admitted it by saying, we don't want this. Biden's making us do it. The government's making us do it. These zealots in charge, the kind of tyrannical governors we saw putting lines in the Home Depot, and you can go to the garden section, but you can't go to the towel section, and all this crap. Put a mask on to walk to your table and take the mask off when you sit at the table. Like you can't spread COVID at the table, but you can when you're walking to the men's room. Are you kidding me? Would you stop it? And worst of all, forcing people to take a vaccine or get fired.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First.
This is Mike, so I want to tell you I like your Spill the Wine interlude music. I was the one who brought the original tape in for the first pressing of that song when I worked for Far Out Management back in the days. I'm a 74-year-old retired person in California. I used to be a caregiver. I worked with a couple senators and congressmen stopping the government's forced relocation of indigenous peoples. And I just got turned down at Social Security. They pulled my EBT saying that because the pandemic is over, we can't give you any more money. We can only give you $20. I said, well, that's an insult. You know what you can do with that. For people to know this is what is going on in our state of California.
Hi, Larry. These morons in the liberal press, they're more concerned about Aaron Rodgers breaking one of the Fauci commandments than they are worried about the people that might freeze to death this winter because they can't afford to pay their heating bills, or because or they're more worried about that than the guy that was drunk doing 150 miles an hour that killed a woman. Aaron Rodgers is more important story to them. What a bunch of jerks.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com. Still to remember, going to be on the Laura Ingraham Show this evening in about an hour and 4 minutes at 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific Time. We're going to be talking about rising crime all over the country, particularly in New York. Also, be sure to participate in our Zip poll question tonight. It's a two-parter. Have you been to a movie in a theater in the last 5 years, yes or no? Have you been to a movie in a theater in the last 3 years, yes or no? In order to participate, you must be a member of the Zip community. Go to your app store, download the Zip app by searching under Zip Poll USA. And in order to participate, you must use my code SAGE, S-A-G-E. Tomorrow will be Phone and Bro, Can You Beat Kirk Friday? More on that, of course, in due course. Longtime New Jersey Senate President has lost to a Republican truck driver named Ed Durr, who, according to Fox News, spent only $153 on the primary campaign. $153. And when the Senate President Steve Sweeney was asked what happened, he said, and I'm quoting, "It was a red wave," close quote. Well, maybe someday we're going to have a red wave out here in California. Believe me, I tried. I talked about crime. I talked about homelessness. I talked about the fact that people are leaving the state for the very first time. I talked about the fact that 75% of black boys cannot read at state levels of proficiency pre-pandemic, and math scores are even worse. Half of all third graders of all the government-educated kids in California cannot read at state levels of proficiency. Math scores even worse. So what's it going to take? I think I told you, when a homeless guy relieves himself on your front lawn, that's when California will probably have its red wave. I am Larry Elder. I'll see you tomorrow. Ciao.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
If that wasn't clear yesterday, let it be clear today.